This is Election Connection, Western Connecticut State University's live news and election coverage. I'm Cameron O'Brien.
And I'm Julian Duress.
We'll be examining issues important to Connecticut and giving you updated election race results from New Haven to Hartford.
You can call in at 203-837-9182 and tweet us at ElectionCT.
Tonight, we look at local races, plus technology versus your privacy, healthcare choices, online radicalism, trade wars, the right to repair, how climate is affecting immigration, and more.
But first, let's take a look at the big board with Audrey Nelson and the local races here in Connecticut.
Thanks, Julian. Let's get started in our hometown of Danbury, Connecticut. Incumbent Mayor Mark Boughton is the Republican candidate, and he's going for a historic 10th term. His Democratic challenger is Chris Sotero, a former city council president. In Hartford, we're looking at incumbent Mayor Luke Bronin, a Democrat, against J. Stan McCauley, who's running on the Republican committee but is a Democrat in Hartford. In Middletown, we're looking at Ben Florsheim, who's 27 years old, and Sebastian Giuliano, who was mayor of Middletown from 2005 to 2011. In New Haven, we have Tony Harp with the Working Families Party, the incumbent mayor, against Democrat Justin Elicker. Write-ins are Seth Poole and Roger Uleem. In Bridgeport, we have embattled incumbent mayor Joe Ganim versus Republican John Rodriguez and Marilyn Moore on the write-in, who won the initial Democratic primary but lost in absentee ballots. Thanks so much. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Audrey, and we'll be checking back at the board throughout the night to get the latest on these races. Let's take a look now at some of the highlights from Danbury's debate between incumbent Mayor Mark Boughton and Democratic challenger Chris Sotero.
We're at the tail end of a contentious election here in Danbury, Connecticut. Republican Mayor Mark Boughton has been mayor for 9 terms. He is currently facing one of his hardest challenges yet from Chris Sotero, the Democratic nominee who nearly took him out during his very first election for mayor. After a debate on October 10th, we spoke to both candidates about one of their most important issues, the overcrowding of schools and funding the education department.
In your debate, you talked about overcrowding in schools.
Absolutely.
What will the specific policies need to be implemented to deal with that overcrowding?
I think that what we need to do is to have a strategic plan.
Well, the irony is that my opponent is claiming that he's going to fully fund the Board of Education, but when given an opportunity to do so, he didn't do it. And his actions resulted in layoffs to the Board of Education. And you can't have it both ways. And I know why he did that. He wanted a 0 tax increase in an election year. And so, okay, but then don't come up here and say that, I'm not doing my job by giving a 6% increase to the Board of Education.
Both candidates threw barbs throughout the night.
Look, do a little bit of scratch on an envelope and figure out everything that Chris has proposed tonight. Your taxes are going to go up $1,800 for every home in this city. $1,800. Think about that.
There's a crisis in our schools, a crisis in our infrastructure, and a crisis in our downtown. In the end, good outcomes are the product of hard work and good judgment, and that's what I bring to the people of Danbury. If the voters are kind enough to elect me in November, you're not going to need 18 years to see change. You'll see change in 18 hours.
Now, obviously, guys, that debate is going to have significant implications on tonight's results. Let's talk about this race. Mark Boughton, he's looking for his 10th consecutive term, what would be a 130-year record here in Danbury. Just how remarkable of an achievement would this be, and what does it say about Mark Boughton?
It is history in the making, guys. Going for his 10th term, he has low unemployment rates and low crime rates to back up his achievement. It's a history in the making. Yeah.
Boughton has strong community ties, and they've carried him through each mayoral election every 2 years. Though I think this election is important for a number of reasons. Obviously, Chris Sotero was the first person to come close to taking out Mark Boughton in his first election for mayor.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a very interesting race and one that we'll be glued in on for the rest of the night. For now, ideological radicalism is more common in the United States this year than ever. The roots of that are found online. Let's take a look.
I'm probably going to die today. Keep up the good fight. That was the message Patrick Crusius left on 8chan this August, just moments before he entered a Walmart in El Paso, Texas, with an AK-47. Crusius told 8chan that his attack was revenge. He referenced white supremacist ideas. Immigrants and native Latinos in El Paso were invaders, and racial mixing was a betrayal. This isn't that unusual. Mass shootings, vehicular assaults, and ideological violence have increased dramatically since 2015. Since the beginning of August, the FBI claims to have thwarted at least 8 copycat mass shootings after El Paso. But how did we get here? Starting with Anders Breivik, the terrorist behind the 2011 Oslo massacre, who inspired the New Zealand shooter, all 22 ideological attacks we surveyed from the last decade have lived second lives on the internet. Just this year, 3 killers have posted announcements and manifestos on 8chan's popular poll board before their mass shootings. 8chan was taken down after the site's host canceled its contract in August following the El Paso attack, but it is not alone. These men were radicalized and radicalized others on message boards like 8chan, 4chan, and N-chan, but they also found homes on social media giants, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. According to researchers at Bellingcat, radicalization is often escalated by what alt-right and manosphere figures call a red pill moment, inspired by The Matrix.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Just red pill all those men right now.
Red pill.
Red pills.
Red pill.
Red pill.
Red pill.
Red pill.
Red pills.
Red pill.
Red pill.
Red pill. Red pill.
Elliot Rogers, the Isla Vista mass murderer, described himself as an incel, an involuntary celibate, online and in his final video.
You forced me to suffer all my life, and now I'll make you all suffer.
Well, Elliot Rogers' red pill was the evils of women who rejected him and sexually active men he felt dominated him. Message boards and comment sections reveal many red pill moments that lead to extremist beliefs. They reveal a supposed truth about the world that dehumanizes some group of people, especially those focused on things like the JQ, or the Jewish question.
Today I want to discuss the JQ, the Jewish question. These leftist Jews that constantly push the Holocaust narrative, these are the ones that are encouraging another Holocaust.
When the Chabad Poway shooter planned his attack on 8chan, another user told him to get a high score. Online environments lend themselves well to what psychologists call toxic disinhibition. Anonymity and a low-stakes environment allows for a building chorus of polarized views and group hostility that can spill into aggressive or violent behavior offline. In other words, it's the social dynamic, not the video games. Violent extremism does not belong to either party, but online, bad faith actors are succeeding in co-opting and corrupting conservative viewpoints and using them to radicalize vulnerable people. In 2018, more than 2/3 of ideologically motivated deaths in the US were by killers associated with white supremacy. Domestic Islamist terrorism, a benchmark for online radicalism, account for only 2%. Young leftist skeptics and middle-aged banner conservatives can be drawn past the line of extremist belief not just by insular or niche online communities, but by the algorithms that run major social media outlets. A team called Google Brain has been in charge of YouTube's neural network recommendation system since 2015. According to the New York Times, a new AI, called Reinforce, was made to keep users on the site by altering user behavior, pointing them towards different content and expanding their tastes. Researchers have found that this system recommends, escalates, and by context, normalizes more and more radical and extremist beliefs. YouTube denies that their algorithm steers users towards extremist content, but they've so far refused to share their internal data with researchers or journalists. Right now, we know that this funnel leads people through content loops of red pill stories, white supremacist concepts like the Great Replacement, conspiracy theories, and more. Internet access is well on its way to becoming a standard internationally, and homegrown communities in artificial intelligence are a big part of that movement. Still, unregulated AI systems and bad actors online can reinforce rhetoric that leads to violence.
Online radical groups are taking aim at vulnerable communities across the U.S. This week, they stopped at WestConn. On October 31st, Halloween night, at least 3 masked men scattered flyers associated with a 4chan stunt across Midtown campus. A racial slur was spray-painted across an outdoor stage, and over the weekend, campus police discovered promotional materials distributed by white supremacist organization Patriot Front. Campus police are investigating, and if we hear any updates during this broadcast, we'll let you know.
Just a reminder, you're watching Election Connection, and we'll be right back.
My best friend since childhood.
My mother.
My child. She was 26 years old.
82 years old.
I was 25 when I killed my best friend.
I was 56 years old when I killed my mother in a drunk driving accident.
I was 35 when I killed my child.
Please drink responsibly and drive sober. Don't let the people you love become another statistic.
Give a dog a bone, give a dog a home. Give a dog a bone, give a dog a home.
Yo, my name is Ali and I need a home. Please give me a backyard with grass and trees for me to roam. I like hole digging, water drinking, and cow sitting. My favorite dog toy is a Hillary Clinton. So on behalf of all dogs, if y'all could help us, it's about 4 million dogs in animal shelters. So stay away from your pet shop, son. You could save a life if you adopt one.
You're watching Election Connection, Western Connecticut State University's live news and election coverage.
And we want to remind our viewers and listeners that you can call in at 203-837-9182 and tweet us at ElectionCT.
In recent times, the term right to repair has been all over the headlines. But what exactly does it mean? Let's take a look.
What if the only business who could repair your phone was the one that made it? Electronics manufacturers have been trying to police how you can repair their products, and consumers are fighting back. Apple has been widely criticized for refusing to sell replacement parts for its devices to independent repair shops, forcing them to use aftermarket or secondhand parts to do their work. This is especially upsetting to customers since electronics in recent years have steadily become more challenging to repair, with the 2019 MacBook Pro earning a 1 out of 10 repairability score from the website iFixit. Critics of Apple assert that the company is strong-arming its customers to seek repairs through them directly, but repairs through Apple's Genius Bar often cost significantly more than the competition, and they have been known to refuse to complete data recoveries that independent shops perform every day.
We reached out to Apple for comment, and they responded by telling us about their recently launched Independent Repair Provider Program, which grants Apple-certified technicians at independent repair businesses access to various Apple parts, tools, and resources. This program marks progress for the tech giant, but Apple's tight regulation and control of their resources means that many customers are still not happy.
That's why the Right to Repair movement has been gaining traction recently. Advocacy groups like the Repair Association are seeking legislation to ensure that customers are able to repair their products wherever they want. We spoke with a representative of iFixit, the leading online resource for electronics repair guides, about the fight for the right to repair.
My name's Kevin Purdy, and I'm a technology journalist for iFixit. The Right to Repair movement's focus is very simple. The same tools and manuals that are available to companies should be available to consumers and independent repair shops. It's about economic fairness. It's about environmental fairness. It's really just creating a level playing field for everybody.
What is the current status of that fight? What has been done to push for that legislation, and what's next?
In 2018/2019, there were 20 different states that took up right to repair bills in their legislatures. Passing a right to repair legislation bill in one state can lead to kind of a cascade or waterfall effect.
Well-known politicians on the state and national stage are concerned about the right to repair. Former Speaker of the Massachusetts House of Representatives Thomas Finneran has been a vocal opponent of the right to repair automobiles, taking the angle that protection of intellectual property is essential to driving the state economy. However, the authenticity of this statement has been called into question since Finneran accepted $20,000 from a lobbying organization that opposes the right to repair. Outside of the auto industry, American farmers have struggled with restrictions on repairing their tractors, which has resulted in top Democratic presidential candidates Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren declaring their support for a bill that protects the right to repair tractors. Right to repair advocates are hopeful that this support will translate to the right to repair consumer electronics as well.
So right now, we're looking to get the right to repair bills on the books in more states into the 2019-2020 sessions. Numerous publications have published articles about the right to repair. I think it's becoming a more well-known term.
The right to repair movement, as it is for electronics, has been compared to the right to repair movement of years past for the automobile industry.
Any repair shop that is, licensed and certified can look at a car and figure out what's wrong with it. Kind of the parallel there we see is that one state's residents standing up and saying that no, there should be an even playing field could have a huge effect on electronics, I think, as it did for cars.
The right to repair movement enjoys widespread support from people of all political leanings. According to a poll conducted by YouGov, 71% of people support the right to repair, with a clear majority of Democrats, Republicans, and independents in favor of right-to-repair legislation. It's rare for a political movement to be supported by such a large, nonpartisan majority.
Massachusetts passed a right to repair initiative in 2012, which grants automobile owners and independent repair shops access to all diagnostic and repair information available to authorized repair facilities. Now the pressure is on our politicians in Connecticut to follow up this victory by defending our right to repair our electronics. This is Sequoia Lowe with WCSU News Election Connection.
Great stuff there, and we've just watched this package on the right to repair. Just how important of an issue is this to Americans?
It's a major issue. I believe we should all have our right to repair our own devices.
The slogan associated with right to repair is the idea that if you buy things, they're yours. You should have the right to do what you want with them, and big tech organizations are trying to stop that. I think people are interested in owning their things, in repairing them where they want to, and spending the amount of money they want to spend on it.
Yeah. All right, well, for now, we have a live race update from Gabe Jones standing by in Bridgeport.
Thank you, Cameron. We were reporting live from the Marilyn Moore campaign party taking place in the Bijou Theater of Bridgeport, Connecticut. There was a huge shock over the decision to not run a second primary after suspicions over the first one. Still, Moore is looking to take this election by the horns. She is a huge advocate for $15 minimum wage, women's health issues, and increasing spending on education. She isn't giving up this race anytime soon, and she's looking for a big win.
Just a couple questions for you now, Gabe. You're at the Moore camp right now. Is there any lingering signs of discouragement still lingering from that primary?
No, there does not seem to be. She is still very passionate about winning this race, and she is not willing to give up the fight.
And is there a belief in her camp that she can pull off this incredible upset as a write-in candidate?
Oh, absolutely. She won primary votes after losing the absentee ballots, so it doesn't look like that there is a falter within her campaign.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Gabe, and I'm sure we'll be checking back in with you later as we get more details on that race. Well, guys, we heard what Gabe had to say there. He was coming from Marilyn Moore's camp. Her biggest rival tonight would probably be incumbent Mayor Joe Ganim. He's well known outside of Connecticut for his previous run-ins with the law. He was previously convicted on 16 federal counts, including bribery, extortion, racketeering, just to name a few. Despite being the incumbent mayor, could his criminal past play a factor tonight?
I don't think so, guys, because don't forget, he was re-elected as mayor of Bridgeport after the fact he got out of jail. So I don't think it's going to play a major role at all, and especially since Joe Ganim has been connected with the city of Bridgeport.
Yeah, Joe Ganim has been mayor for Bridgeport for a while, and the community knows him there. I think it's important that we note that the Connecticut Supreme Court, as Gabe mentioned, declined to make a ruling that would push off the election tonight and rerun the primary. So we're going to see these votes, and they're going to be final votes, and then they'll end up rolling the SEC investigation into possible foul play in the primary moving forward. So it's interesting to see the controversy around this, if it's going to affect those poll numbers tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the case of the Republican candidate in this race, John Rodriguez, Democrats hold a 10-to-1 advantage in registered voters in the city. Where can you put his chances tonight?
It's very small chance where I don't see a connection that he has with the Bridgeport community coming out of New York a few years back. Not a slight chance.
Yeah. Well, all right, obviously we'll be keeping an eye on that race as the night continues. For now, we have Zach Duhame, who is here with the weather.
Hi, guys. It wasn't the best election day forecast. Temperatures around 60 on the mild side, which was good. But we had a couple of showers, especially in eastern Connecticut. They got dumped on around 3 or 4 o'clock, but that since has moved on. The good news is tomorrow, sunny and cool. So for those celebrating maybe some morning brunches for the parties that won their races, this lovely evening, it's going to be nice weather on the cool side, but sunny conditions. Now, we have some rain and even a few flakes for Thursday. A storm is going to bring us some heavy rain probably overnight Thursday night into early Friday morning. May end as a couple of flakes around the Danbury area. Could be talking about a couple of inches potentially in the northwest hills like Norfolk, Connecticut, the very icebox Connecticut. I'll show you that in a little bit. And a very chilly Friday to Sunday. We're talking about lows in the teens, highs barely making it to 40. That's about 15 degrees below where we should be. So a very Arctic blast, a very powerful one at that. will be coming through over the next couple of days. The next map is going to show you the current temperatures. Earlier this evening, around 60 across Bridgeport, Hartford, and Danbury. 57 was the temperature in Danbury a little while ago. Now we're dropping off into the 40s, eventually the 30s overnight. The next map will show you tomorrow's forecast. Not bad, mid to upper 40s, so a little bit below average. Lots of sun, light wind, so again, beautiful for any celebrations tomorrow or anything you want to do outside, walking to class, walking to work. Not like today where it's gloomy, misty, and just dreary. Much better tomorrow. And we have to talk about something else, though. There could be the potential for the system Thursday with a little bit of snow, but I want to emphasize a little bit. We have a storm riding over us in Connecticut. If you want a snowstorm, you want the storm to be down the south here, bringing us, where you see this kind of white shading of snow. It's going to ride overhead, bringing us the warm air. That brings us some rain and a little bit of snow maybe at the tail end. So I cannot rule out a flake or two in a couple of towns, especially in northern Connecticut. Early Friday morning around 4 to 6 in the morning. Northwest Hills may have a better shot at seeing a little bit of snow. Let's take a look at that future radar. Next map will show you where I think the best shot for some snow is. See, it's right in there, touching the Northwest Hills. There could be a little bit of snow, but green, that means rain elsewhere. But there could be more snow in the forecast. Let's take a look at this forecast for the upcoming week. By the weekend, this jet stream moves way down south, so it's definitely going to be cold. That's guaranteed. Lows in the teens, highs in the 40s, even upper 30s. Stormy is the potential. We could have a storm as early as Tuesday or Wednesday next week, which could, guys, bring our first major snow event, which should be about a week out, which is the second week of November, very early. If you remember last year, we had the same thing, November 15th, 6 inches of snow fell last year on the same day. Next map will show you very cold, like I said, by Saturday morning. Temperatures right now only forecasted to be in the teens and 20s for lows, probably around 40 for a high. That's 15 degrees below the average. So if you have any plans Saturday morning, any road races, please, I beg you, bundle up if you're heading outside. Tonight's forecast temperatures in the mid to upper 30s. Cool early clouds decreasing after midnight. So tomorrow's going to be a nice forecast. For tomorrow's forecast, we're talking about highs around 50, mainly sunny, a little bit on the cool side, but that light west wind will make it feel a little bit not as cold out there. If you had a strong wind, you would kind of feel that wind chill. Not the case for tomorrow. The extended 5-day forecast, look at this. Not too bad, but again, Thursday into Friday, we're looking at the chance for some rain, maybe a few flakes, especially in the hills. I think Northwest Connecticut could see a coating to an inch or two. Everywhere else, maybe a flake or two. And then we cool things down low, 17 by Saturday morning, jumping up to 40 by the afternoon, only 48 for a high on Sunday. And the question is, do we get that storm in for early next week? We'll have more updates all night long here at Alexa Connection. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you so much, Mark. And a question for you guys now. Did you guys see the weather today having any impact on voter turnout?
It was warm and cool. I believe everyone should have went out, and hopefully you guys all did went out and go vote.
Yeah, there should have been no, at least, weather barriers for getting to the polling places today.
Absolutely. Well, standing by now at Chris Sotaro's camp is Mark Dowling with an update.
Hey guys, we're reporting live from the Democratic headquarters in downtown Danbury. I'm Chris Sotaro, former City Council president of 10 years, who hopes to dethrone the current mayor, going for his 10th term in office. And as you can see right now, it's very loud. There's high spirits. People are very excited for the turnout. Regardless of the outcome, there are a lot of people here working their hardest to really get this going. So, very exciting night so far.
Mark, a couple questions for you. Obviously, Chris Sotaro trying to unseat the incumbent mayor, looking for his 10th term, Mark Boughton. What is the general vibe coming from his camp as polls are closing?
Well, we actually talked to one of the campaign managers, a man named Stacy, and he suggested that it was either going to be more of a landslide on the side of Boughton, or they were going to win by a couple hundred votes. So as of right now, the polls aren't fully out, but everyone here is very confident they put in the time, effort, and necessary work to get this done. So as of right now, very happy with the results.
And one more question for you here, Mark. As you mentioned, he was a former city council president. Does he feel that that experience could carry over into the mayoral office?
Oh, absolutely. It takes a lot of responsibility to be in that position and maintain it for the amount of time that he did. 10 years is nothing to shake a finger at. And some say it could rival the 18 years that Boughton's been mayor in experience and in time, given that it's a similar position, dealing with the public and dealing with a lot of affairs that come up in that line of work. So, yes, he's thinking it's going to transfer quite a bit, the skills and time and, the traits that he picked up on the job.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mark. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you as the night continues.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So we just heard from Mark. When it comes to Chris Sotaro, he's got the difficult task of trying to stop this Boughton train in its tracks. Has he done enough in this campaign to unseat Mayor Mark Boughton?
He definitely has ran a solid campaign, and he has the momentum.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be interesting to see tonight.
I think Sotero is really focusing on these niche groups. And as we count the votes, with the polling places closed now, they're going to be out there counting our Sotero votes, our Boughton votes. I think we're going to see what voters are prioritizing. That long-term relationship with Boughton that has been built over years, or Sotero's voice for more stakeholders in the decision-making rooms, more changes in the shorter term to make Danbury a better place. So I think we're going to see a lot of changes on the priority lines as the votes come in.
Well, technology affects everything we do now, including voter integrity and privacy laws. Privacy laws include the Fourth Amendment right to be free or unwarranted search or seizure, the First Amendment right to free assembly, and the 14th Amendment, due process. But is privacy gone? Let's take a look.
Developed in 2016, Amazon's identifying system Rekognition was originally designed for facial recognition authentication, indexing image and video files, and celebrity identification.
Amazon Rekognition Video's activity and label detection provides customers with rich metadata from video for search and filtering. Amazon Rekognition Video extracts metadata from this video by detecting objects and activities.
Over the course of the years, the technology has expanded its facial recognition system beyond entertainment-based usages. The Washington County Sheriff's Office in Oregon has already implemented Rekognition's advanced capability to match facial similarities. With the access of a collection of jail booking mugshots, law enforcement is able to determine some of the unidentified suspects under criminal investigations. We interviewed Sergeant Casey from Western Connecticut State University's Police Department to find out more about this technology system.
There's several problems that have come up with it that is potentially biased in that when they did the examples and they took the trial, the trains, if you will, of the models, it was predominantly white males. And that rate is a good clearance of false negatives is because there's such a large database of white males. However, females, dark-skinned, minorities, it's a little bit more failure rate because it doesn't have many examples in their database.
We have some breaking news tonight. Unfortunately, Manchester's John Deeb, the Connecticut GOP, the Towns Committee chairman, a 75-year-old representative from Manchester, was struck at 6:30 p.m. by a car and killed. The story is developing. If we get any updates later tonight, we will let you know.
And obviously, we'll be keeping you guys updated on that, as you just said. For now, we're going to continue with civil liberties and technology. Technology offers many advantages to modern life. Is it worth the cost?
Definitely is, because as we are in a society that's moving with technology. Yeah. The more technology we have, the more it's better. As long as technology is for the better of the people, I think yes, we should. Why not? Yeah. It's better for us. If it could be used in a great society for well-being, why not? Yeah.
I think, especially with the topic of that news package there, we have to think about how we're progressing forward. So do we have the policies already in place to protect our privacy, to protect our fundamental rights? I know recently on Recode, Edward Snowden said that Facebook and other tech giants are more of a security risk to the individual person than the NSA. And essentially we have to make a choice as a country. How much do we need to restrict individual corporations in the ways they can access our personal lives?
Yeah. And do big companies like Apple or Microsoft, do they need to take some responsibility in regards to these issues?
For security concerns, yes, because we all have our private lives that we don't want to be exposed. So definitely in terms of security breaching, yes, we do. They do.
And I think companies should make a moral choice at the higher levels to coordinate with the government to try not try not to get around rules that protect us on a privacy level, and to not cooperate with using social advances in technology to fund things like surveillance and other governmental level intrusions into the American public.
Yeah. Well, obviously this is a big issue, and I'm sure it won't be going anywhere anytime soon. For now, we have Zena Cajamarca, who's standing by with a live update in Hartford. Zena?
Hi, Cameron. I'm at Luke Bronin's watch party right now. There seems to be a lot of people talking about today's election. A lot of people are excited to find out the results for tonight's race. Many people are confident that he will win, and they're hoping that he will continue to be Hartford's next mayor.
Zena, a couple questions for you. Luke Bronin, being the incumbent mayor, does he feel he has a big advantage heading into election night?
Yes, most certainly. He has already been the current mayor of Hartford, so he knows what is expected to be of mayor, and he has created a reputation for himself. Therefore, he shouldn't really have a problem in, knowing what it takes to be mayor again or being reelected.
And one more question for you. He's worked alongside former Governor Daniel Malloy. He has a history of political experience. Does that give him an advantage with voters tonight?
It most certainly does. Working with higher authorities gives anyone additional benefits. So he should really he shouldn't really have much of a competition since he has worked with Governor Malloy in the past.
All right. Well, thank you, Zena. We'll be checking back in with you later, I'm sure. So on that race, on the Hartford race, one of the most interesting storylines of the night is J. Stan McCauley. He's running on the Republican ticket as a registered Democrat. Just how unprecedented is this?
It's definitely different. It's the first time I've seen something like this. But I wonder why he couldn't go in as a write-in.
Yeah.
Definitely, did his views change over the years to why he wants to become a Republican candidate?
J. Stan McCauley has said that he's trying to move beyond party politics. He has a lot of criticisms for how Luke Bronin has approached Hartford on the community level, and he wants to revamp public safety, the way the education budget is approached, and other table issues, essentially, for Hartford's community. And what he says is that he has more in common on those issues with the Republican committee than he does with the incumbent, Luke Bronin.
And what does it say about Hartford's political climate that the city's Republican committee cross-endorsed McCauley?
Well, like I said, they have concerns in common with Luke Bronin's mayoral terms. Yeah. And they have changes that they want to see in Hartford. And maybe even because we haven't seen a Democrat taken out of office and replaced by a Republican in Hartford in a long time, they're hoping that having an actual Democrat on their committee ticket will get someone with their priorities in that office easier.
And Luke Bronin, I posed this question to Zena. He worked for a number of years alongside Dan Malloy, the former governor of the state. Do you feel his experience there has helped him in his years as the mayor of the capital city?
I feel like dealing with a whole state and a city is two different things. Definitely it has an impact on him. Hopefully he can use the tactics that he learned from Dan Malloy to be the mayor.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that the people of Hartford are probably looking more at Mayor Bronin's history in this mayoral office. He's been in there for years now, and he led Hartford through what some describe as its biggest fiscal crisis. And he got it basically back on track financially. And I think that's more what voters in Hartford are going to be thinking about than his history prior to taking the role.
And you obviously just touched on this, and another question I posed to Zena. He is the incumbent mayor. How much of an advantage does he have with that fact being true heading into tonight?
He definitely has the upper hand. Definitely, like you said, bringing them out of a fiscal year and also bringing investment to the city of Hartford, he definitely has an advantage.
Yeah, I think it's been a very long time since Hartford had a Republican mayor at the head. So in addition to being an incumbent, the odds are just in Luke Bronin's favor.
Yeah. Well, now we switch gears. According to a recent Fox News poll and NPR, healthcare remains a top issue for voters when sizing up presidential candidates for the 2020 election. Let's take a look.
Healthcare is one of the leading topics of discussion in politics today. Between current running presidential candidates, some favor a public option healthcare system, whereas others support a universal single-payer healthcare system, something our neighboring country of Canada and many European countries use today. During the second Democratic presidential debate, candidates expressed their opinions on healthcare systems.
People don't like their private insurance companies. Under our plan, people go to any doctor they want, any hospital they want.
And I feel very strongly that families ought to be able to have this choice.
Quickest, fastest way to do it is build on Obamacare.
I believe we need to get to universal health care as a right, not a privilege, to single payer.
The United States has many healthcare plans and insurances, with 91.2% of Americans having health insurance coverage. However, due to inefficiency, administrative costs in the United States account for around 8% of overall healthcare costs. In other developed countries, the average is between 1% and 3%. For those who may not know, in a single-payer healthcare system, rather than multiple competing health insurance companies, everyone has health coverage under a single health insurance plan, with access to necessary services. To get a better idea of people's thoughts and concerns of a universal single-payer healthcare system, we interviewed Dr. Edwin Wong, a professor at Western Connecticut State University, for his thoughts.
Certainly one of the pros, of course, is that costs will be under control, because right now we know that costs are completely out of control with regards to health care. Pharmaceutical companies are price gouging, which is a scandal in itself.
The United States could save $175 billion in health care by cutting in half administrative costs. Not to mention, in 2017, 1.4 million Americans went overseas for medical care to get a better deal.
One of the downsides goes back to cost again. If the average consumer is not bearing the burden of most of the insurance premiums, although we will pay a little bit of it, that means the government will, and that means that we will have to pay, our taxes will go up as a result of that.
According to Harvard Health Publishing at Harvard Medical School, single payer will not ease the constant tension of balancing access, quality, and cost in healthcare. For instance, some Canadian provinces spend 40% of their budget on healthcare, which reduces funding for other programs like education and infrastructure.
She wants to go to a single payer plan, which would be a disaster, somewhat similar to Canada. Their system is so slow. It's catastrophic in certain ways. Government basically rules everything.
Healthcare will continue to be a hot topic of discussion throughout the remaining presidential debates. How candidates plan on implementing and funding a universal system that is run efficiently remains to be seen. This is WCSU News coverage. Stay healthy and stay safe. Signing off.
You're watching Election Connection, Western Connecticut State University's live news and election coverage over Danbury Comcast Channel 97, WXCI 91.7 FM, and streaming over wcsu.edu/live.
Have a question or comment? You can call in at 203-837-9182 and tweet us at ElectionCT.
For now, we send it out to Ian Townley, who is standing by at Mayor Mark Boughton's camp in Danbury.
We are coming to you live here at Anthony's Lake Club in Danbury at the Mark Boughton campaign headquarters, where the incumbent Republican is set to take on Chris Sotero, the Democrat, for his 10th consecutive term as mayor. According to Mark Boughton's team, his campaign platform has mostly been business-friendly, all about the revitalization of downtown Danbury and the strengthening of the public school system. The vibe of the room here in Anthony's Lake Club is excited, confidence, and the numbers, the unofficial numbers, have just started rolling in. Mark Boughton is at 4,711 votes, and the Democrat Chris Sotero is at 4,248 votes.
Important stuff there, Ian, and a couple questions for you here. It's been a bit of a been there, done that for Mayor Mark Boughton, this being his 10th mayoral election that he's taken part in. What is the general vibe around his camp right now? I know you touched on it briefly, but if you could expand on that for us.
That's a great question, Cameron. The general vibe around his camp is confidence. According to Mark Boughton's team, they feel like he's done a great job connecting with all members of the Danbury community.
And one more question, Ian. He's obviously campaigned hard for this re-election. Has this campaign been based more on new ideas or leaning back on his body of work?
That's also a great question, Cameron. I'd say it's a combination of both. In the last 18 years, Mark Boughton's team feels like they've done a great job with the down job unemployment rates and the down crime rates, and also combined with new ideas such as connecting the Danbury train line with New York's Brewster and Southeast line, and that would help alleviate the traffic going into, coming out of, and within the city of Danbury.
All right, well, thank you so much, Ian, and thank you for keeping us posted on those unofficial results. All right, guys, so we heard what Ian had to say there. Obviously, a very tight race as of right now. One of the things regarding Mayor Mark Boughton, now, since he's become the mayor of Danbury, crime rates are down 22% as a whole, and unemployment rates have gone down significantly every year that he's been in office. It's hard to argue with numbers like that. How will it impact voters tonight?
Economy and security is one of the most top priorities for anybody, any voter. I believe with those achievements, it definitely have a positive impact on him.
I think Boughton is really running on his track record. One of the things that Sotero has criticized him for is a lack of follow-through on smaller projects, projects that aren't getting completed. Boughton's answer to that is his 2017 Danbury Playbook, which is focused on bringing Danbury to the future. So he's approaching new projects by assigning project management offices, or he will if he gets elected again. And I think that it'll be interesting how voters respond to this new approach to getting and completing citywide projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for now, we're going to switch gears, heading into another news package here, the 2020 presidential election landscape.
The 2020 presidential election is looming in the distance as key candidates begin to charge ahead towards their goal of gaining office. Four major candidates in the election are former Vice President Joe Biden.
The single most important thing we have to accomplish is defeat Donald Trump.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
I'm Bernie Sanders. I'm running for president.
Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren.
I stand here today to declare that I am a candidate for President of the United States of America.
And current President Donald Trump.
With every ounce of heart and might and sweat and soul, we're going to keep making America great again. And then we will indeed keep America great.
The door is seemingly wide open for any candidate, and with these many contenders left, it could be anyone's game. So where exactly does the general public place their support in this developing race? We went around campus and asked some WCSU students about their thoughts on the 2020 election. We asked 15 WestCon students about who they plan to vote for in the upcoming election. They all agreed on one candidate.
Voting for Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
It'd be Bernie Sanders.
However, there was a more divisive opinion about who stood the best chance at actually gaining office.
Pretty positive Bernie will take that election. I think he's going to win that. Probably Trump.
I feel like he will too.
In the political world, stories are always changing and campaigns can collapse in an instant. We still have a ways to go until that fateful night in November, but for now, the Oval Office might just have an open door.
Obviously, very timely and important stuff there. A question I want to pose to you guys: how will each of these Democratic candidates fare against Donald Trump, and do the Democrats have a strong chance in this upcoming election?
With this election season coming up, they definitely have a fair chance. It's not going to be easy for either party.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be an interesting one, especially with the impeachment proceedings moving forward, the inquiry. It'll be interesting to see which Republican voters and Trump voters might be convinced to move over for some of these candidates. Our top polling candidates obviously are Joe Biden, who came out from the Obama presidency, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, and Pete Buttigieg. There are obviously more candidates in the race. We know that Beto O'Rourke has recently dropped out, so the race is thinning, if only a little bit. I don't think that we can say definitively which of these candidates is really going to resonate with these swing voters until it narrows a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, switching gears now, we're going to head over to our own WestCon's own meteorologist, Zach Duhame, with a weather update.
Hi guys, it was not the best of days for Election Day today. I had some showers earlier. Eastern Connecticut got dumped on with heavy rain around 4 or 5 o'clock. So for that evening voting hour, not the best of weather, but right now we're drying things out and cooling things off. So for tomorrow, it's going to be sunny and seasonably cool temperatures around 50 degrees, which is a couple degrees below average. Overall, not too bad considering that a couple days ago we were stuck in the 40s. Rain, a couple of flakes for Thursday. It looks like most of us sees rain. A couple days ago, it looked like a big snowstorm. Now, probably a light to moderate rain event with some flakes mixed in, possible especially northern Connecticut, maybe a quick coating in the hills as the system pulls in some cold air. And one thing's for certain, we're still talking about very chilly weather Friday through Sunday. Friday, highs not getting out of the 30s, feeling like the 20s with the gusty wind, lows in the teens. We'll get to it later on in the forecast. So let's look at tomorrow's forecast. Current temperatures first, I should say. Temperatures today were around 60 degrees for a lot of towns. 57 was the high in Danbury. And now we're going to be talking about temperatures that are a little bit cooler tomorrow, closer to the 50-degree mark. Now, for tomorrow's forecast, let's go back to that forecast. Here we go. Cooler than today, but again, lots of sun, so overall, not much to complain about for tomorrow. But we have changes coming, and let's look at what could happen on Thursday. We have the system coming right overhead, and that's not good news for those snow lovers. You want snow, you want the storm to form. Just down here, we get the cold air in, lots of snow to fall. Like where this kind of white shading is, that's your snowfall across northern New England. This green area shows rain, except for the extreme northwest hills. Most of us will see rain. Look at that future radar around like 11 o'clock tomorrow evening. On Thursday evening. You can see the blue indicating that snow very close by, rain elsewhere. So most of us are seeing rain. Cannot rule out a couple of flakes as the tail end of this pulls away before the morning rush on Friday, but no accumulation except maybe an extreme northwest part of the state where they can see a quick coating, maybe an inch or two if enough heavy snow falls. But that may not be the only opportunity for snow. Look at the upcoming pattern. We're seeing a big pattern change by this weekend. A jet stream dips way down south. Cold is definitely going to be here. Temperatures, like I said, for highs around 40, lows in the teens. Storm, that's a question. Right now, some models indicate a storm may kind of ride along this boundary and bring us some snow early to maybe next week. Still about a week away. We know how fast things change around here, guys. We know this deal every winter long. But don't forget, it's only November like 15th next week, and we could be talking about our first plowable snow of the season. Tonight's forecast, not too bad. Sorry guys, I'm getting confused tonight. Look at this. So for highs on Saturday, temperatures are going to start off around 20 degrees, very cold, then get to around 30 to 35 to 40, feeling like the 20s with the wind all day long. So Saturday, you're going to want to bundle up out there if you're heading out to do anything, any activities. Definitely bundle up. Now for tonight's forecast, temperatures 36 degrees, clouds early, cooler than we should be, but overall not too cold. We were in the 20s a couple nights ago. Tomorrow's forecast, nice, talking about 50-degree temperatures, lots of sun, so that's going to be the highlight of the forecast. A light wind, so not having to worry about a wind chill for tomorrow. An extended forecast, look at this. They're talking about a storm on Thursday, and again, that could bring a couple of flakes into the area. Not talking about a widespread issue, but cannot rule out a couple of flakes. Friday, look at these temperatures, 39 for a high. That's near the average low, so we're going way down at the temperatures for Saturday morning. 40 is your high on Saturday with some breezy conditions as well. Sunday, closer to 50. But overall, guys, the forecast, it's been kind of changeable. We've been up and down, up and down. Nothing like Halloween storm, which is quite impressive. But we could be talking about from a rainstorm to maybe a snowstorm in the next couple of weeks. That's what we happen in the fall season. We transition from summer to winter. It may happen pretty quickly. We're going to be back here with election coverage all night long here until 11 o'clock at WCSU Election Connection.
Thanks, Zach. It seems like we're looking at a rainy day on Thursday. And he mentioned that we'll be looking at some snow heading up. I am so excited. What do you guys think about snow starting up at the end of November?
I'm a warm weather kind of guy, so for me, not the greatest news, but, it is what it is. And obviously we know here in the Northeast, snow comes thick and snow comes fast.
Definitely, I have to agree. I like the tropical weather. I cannot stand the snow. I'm not looking forward to it at all.
Well, just a reminder to everybody, you are watching Western Connecticut's Election Connection. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Told me what I couldn't wear. When he started getting possessive and dictated who I could talk to. When he said he would never hit me. That's all going to change. Enough is enough. Let the Women's Center of Greater Danbury help you.
Who is Ryan?
He's my big brother.
My mom said he went away with his friends. I hope he comes back soon.
Why is Ryan the best brother?
Sometimes he tucked me in bed. He always got me off the bus. Sometimes I even watch him draw.
If you could say anything to Ryan, what would it be?
Come home.
When you think of jail, who do you see serving time?
A thief.
A murderer.
A drug dealer.
A kidnapper.
An embezzler.
If you serve minors, you could serve time.
You're watching Election Connection, Western Connecticut State University's live news and election coverage over Danbury Comcast Channel 97, WXCI 91.7 FM, and streaming over wcsu.edu/live.
Have a question or comment? You can call in at 203-837-9182 and tweet us at ElectionCT.
Now we have Rachel Pete, who's standing by with a live election update from New Haven.
Hi, we are down here in downtown New Haven at Next Door, the restaurant for Eliker's live watch party here. And as you can see, there is a lot of support here. It's pretty crowded. Everybody's pretty happy, talking about the whole race that's been taking place and getting really heated between mainly Harp and Eliker. There's two other write-ins right now, but they have been the major candidates in this race here in New Haven. And Eliker has been advocating education development here in New Haven as he has two daughters at home. He has been advocating a new fiscal plan for New Haven because of the budget in New Haven as of right now, amongst other topics in his campaign. So, we don't have any unofficial numbers as of right now, but the support is looking awesome here. We'll have to keep you updated throughout the night and see how things move along.
Now, Rachel, Eliker won a very close Democratic primary. Does his team feel that he can parlay that momentum into a victory tonight?
I believe so. In that primary election, he had won by over 2,000 votes from Harp and defeated her in that, which he was defeated by her 3 terms ago, 6 years ago, when Harp won and started her mayoral term, long-term, past 6 years here. And now he's defeated her, so it looks like he really has a chance here tonight.
And one more question for you. He's been quoted as saying the most valuable asset in New Haven is its people. Has this message, among many others, resonated amongst his constituents?
I would have to say so. According to his social media and just even walking into this event here tonight, there's been a lot of people from the community that are smiling and talking about him in a positive way, and he has been attending a lot of events in the community recently and making sure that that's out there on social media, so he's really been making an impact with the community for sure.
Thank you so much, Rachel, and we'll be checking back in with you later, I'm sure.
All right.
All right, guys, so incumbent Mayor Toni Harp in New Haven, she initially suspended her campaign after losing the primary on September 25th. But as of October 17th, she unsuspended her campaign. Is it too late for Toni Harp to make a real run at Justin Eliker in this election?
It's iffy. She definitely has a reason why she unsuspended it, so she definitely has hope. Yeah. We'll see tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. She was forced to run on the Working Families Party ticket because she didn't win the Democratic primary. But she has strong community ties in the area. You just wonder if the Democrats didn't come out to vote for her in the primary, what would have changed in the weeks between the primary and tonight's election?
Yeah. And we heard Rachel talk about it briefly, but Eliker, he did win that very primary that we mentioned. He is the favorite tonight. He ran against Harp previously, 6 years ago, and lost. What does he have to do, and what has he already done differently in order to change that result tonight?
Well, maybe the state of New Haven has changed. Definitely 6 years ago, it's not 2019. So definitely he's running a solid campaign, which he has to continue to do.
Yeah.
I think Eliker is trying to run from a small business-minded point of view. He served on the board of elders for a long time. He has an MBA, he has an MS, focused on management, and I think he's trying to bring this kind of management-focused view to the mayorship.
And for the last 95 years, New Haven has had a Democratic mayor. What does that say about the political state of the city?
New Haven is a college city in Connecticut. I think that it's not unusual for cities like this to go Democratic. I think Danbury is one of the exceptions to that rule in Connecticut. New Haven obviously is where Yale is at, and there's going to be a larger coterie, I think, of liberal voters. So we don't have a focused Republican candidate tonight, and we do have a Working Families Party candidate, but in general, the Democratic Party holds out. I think it'll come down to these community-level ties.
Yeah. I just want to switch gears right now because we have John Board who's standing by on the phone with some breaking news. John?
Hello, Western Connecticut State University. I can officially report that the New Britain mayor, Mayor Aaron Stewart, has been reelected to a historic fourth term. This means that she'll be serving 8 years as mayor as the city of New Britain. We are still running numbers right now, but the mayor has secured victory this evening over her Democratic challenger, Chris Porcher.
Well, thank you so much for that breaking news, John. We really appreciate it. Guys, obviously hearing about that, really kind of our first confirmed result of the night. Do you feel that, this result here will kind of trigger more news coming in from other races and more confirmed victories for mayors across the state?
Definitely. Hopefully we get them earlier than midnight.
Yeah, the earlier the better.
The earlier the better.
Yeah, we're waiting on the official confirmation on these numbers, but Stewart was coming up against two candidates, essentially. Chris Porcher, who's 28, and Devon Tanksley, who was a petitioning candidate. It just didn't seem like they were going to be able to get the votes up against her. Yeah. So it's interesting to see her reclaim New Britain like this. Yeah. Though, of course, we have to wait for the final confirmed polling numbers.
Of course. Well, just to reiterate it there, Aaron Stewart has been reelected, unconfirmed, as the mayor of New Britain. Headed back to what we were talking about before, there certainly seems to be a bit of a rivalry in New Haven, that mayoral race, between Harp and Elliker. They've clashed heads many times in the past and leading up to this election. Do you think we could see tensions boiling over again tonight?
It's the last night. Well, elections, by now, I believe the polls are closed, but definitely it was a messy election. I don't think so.
I think a lot of voters in New Haven are hoping that whatever the outcome of tonight's election, the city can kind of heal from a very contentious election cycle. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of barbs and accusations were thrown between the Harp campaign and the Elliker campaign. And I would think that most of the voters in New Haven are just hoping to move past that regardless of who is elected tonight.
Well, guys, we actually have more breaking news. We've just received word that Mark Boughton has been reelected mayor of Danbury for a historic 10th term. Just to reiterate that one more time, Mayor Mark Boughton has been reelected in Danbury and will serve another term as the mayor. This is Election Connection, streaming on WXCI 91.7 FM, Comcast Channel 97, and WCSU.edu/live. I'm Cameron O'Brien.
And I'm Julian Duress. Do you have a question or comment? You can call us now at 203-837-9182 and tweet us at ElectionCT.
And guys, we have some breaking news as we just broke a few minutes ago. Aaron Stewart has been reelected mayor in New Britain, and Mark Boughton has been reelected mayor in Danbury. Obviously, this show's coming to you live from Western Connecticut in Danbury. I want to get your guys' thoughts on Mark Boughton being reelected. Actually, hang on, guys. Hold that thought because we have Ian Townley, who is standing by in Danbury at Mark Boughton's headquarters. Ian?
Hi, Cameron. We are here at Anthony's Lake Club in Danbury, where it has been official that Mark Boughton is going to be Danbury's next mayor, serving his 10th consecutive record term. That's a 130-year record for the city of Danbury. He has not arrived on the scene yet, but we will be in touch with you when we get the opportunity to speak with the fine man.
And Ian, just a question for you. Of the people that are there right now, is it a bit of a celebration? What's the mood like right now?
That's a great question. The mood is changing from we don't really know to it's a done deal, and the smiles on everybody's faces are pretty ecstatic right now.
All right, well, thank you so much, Ian, and we'll be checking back with you later when Mark Boughton arrives on the scene. So, Julian, I want to grab your thoughts real quick here. Mark Boughton, he's been reelected. What are your initial thoughts?
Congratulations, Mark Boughton. But definitely, he has a long achievement goals. He definitely low unemployment rates, low crime rates. Definitely, it played a big role.
Yeah,
it wasn't a surprise.
Absolutely. And for Chris Totaro, coming up short again here. If you were a member of his camp, you know, what would your feeling be right now?
I would have felt his courage. They definitely, I believe, they showed Mark Boughton's weakness and what he has to work on on his new term. Definitely, they had a solid election.
Yeah. And so one of the things Boughton had campaigned on is, we mentioned it, trying to connect the Danbury train line with the New York's Brewster and Southeast train lines to get a direct train from Danbury to New York City. How big of an impact is that going to have on this city if Boughton and Danbury is able to go through with it?
It's going to be a huge improvement. Definitely, the economy's going to go up, like I said. The property value is going to go up, and Danbury's going to be connected to Grand Central.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It'd be incredible. Chris Totaro, throughout his campaign, as you mentioned, he brought things to the light, things that needed to be worked on and fixed in Danbury. Two of those main things were overcrowding in schools and the lack of investment in schools, as well as the infrastructure in Danbury deteriorating, specifically roads. Do you feel, if anything, Chris Totaro can take pride in bringing those ideas and bringing those, I guess, outstanding problems in Danbury to the light and showing Mark Boughton what needs to be worked on?
Definitely. He brought the problems to the bigger table, and I feel now it's up to Mark Boughton to resolve these problems, these issues.
Yeah. And for many years, Boughton, he's championed the phrase, people over politics. And this year, before really any other, it seemed like he was going to be really put to the test. Do you feel that bipartisan approach has resonated with people in the past, and of course, did it resonate with people today going to the voting?
Definitely, he won the re-election.
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah. So obviously, we look at Danbury moving forward in the next 2 years. We mentioned the roads, we mentioned the schools. Is there anything outstanding that you've seen that Boughton needs to work on and needs to get to right away in these next 2 years?
Definitely what Chris Totaro's camp has been talking about the whole time, campaigning about. He definitely has to work on these situations, overcrowding schools, definitely downtown, and he will be fine.
Yeah. So Chris Totaro, obviously, do you see, obviously he came very close tonight. Do you see a possibility of him running again in 2 years to try and unseat Boughton for what would be his 11th attempt?
Definitely. He was close. He was definitely close. Definitely. Don't give up.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, looking at a couple other races that we have here, we mentioned Bridgeport before. There's a lot of controversy in that election. Marilyn Moore, she's a write-in candidate tonight. She initially beat Ganim in the primary. But after all the absentee votes were counted, it turned out Ganim did have more votes by a small margin. I'd love to get your thought on the situation and kind of how it played out and how you see it playing out tonight.
I believe that Joe Ganim definitely has an advantage because the absentee votes, they're not illegal.
Yeah.
So it's still going to be an advantage for him. And I do believe Marilyn Moore definitely can win. It's possible, but I believe it's going to be 50-50. We just don't know yet till tonight. We'll know.
And a question that I posed before, Moore, she faces a massive problem, a massive challenge of trying to win a general election through write-in votes. How difficult of a challenge will that be for Moore to end tonight as the next mayor of Bridgeport?
It's not, because definitely, you know, Bridgeport being a Democratic city, I don't think it's going to have a problem at all.
Yeah. And furthermore on that race, does Moore have the right to ask for inquiries on the primary election? Obviously, we know there's a lot going on with it right now. Does she have the right to ask for that, considering Ganim's past troubles with bribery, extortion, and other federal charges he's faced?
I don't think so. Like I said before, he was arrested. He did serve his time. I don't think he would do the same mistake twice. Right. And definitely since he's been reelected again as a mayor of Bridgeport, I don't think so at all.
Yeah. And do you have the right, as a voter, to have some fear in electing Joe Ganim, considering his political and his criminal past?
The people of Bridgeport definitely trust him. Think about it. He went to prison, came back, went to election, and got reelected.
Yeah.
He definitely has a connection with the people of Bridgeport, which I don't think is a problem.
Yeah. And another candidate that we can't forget about in this race is the Republican candidate. It's John Rodriguez. He's the Republican candidate. Democrats hold a 10-1 advantage in registered voters in the city. Where can you put his chances tonight?
He's new. He's very new. I don't believe the people of Bridgeport know him enough.
Yeah.
Coming out of New York City, he definitely has a small chance. Definitely a huge small chance.
Yeah. And Marilyn Moore, she has a history as a state senator. It has and will become a recurring theme in our coverage tonight. But would her previous and political experience translate in the mayoral office?
Yes. Like I said, she is Joe Ganim's biggest contester. Definitely, she has the vote of the people and the minorities also. But like I said, it's going to be difficult, but at the same time, it's going to be a little bit shaky. Like I said, they're both Democrat candidates. It's 50-50. It can go either way.
Yeah. Well, we'll patiently await the results from that Bridgeport race. The polls have been closed for an hour now. Let's take a look at the big board with Audrey Nielsen and the local races here in Connecticut.
Thanks, Cameron. So we're going to look quickly at the unofficial results that were rolling from Danbury and a few of our other towns. In the Danbury mayoral race, we can say unofficially that Mark Boughton has won at a margin of under 500 votes. In Middletown, in New Haven, actually, we have unofficial numbers right now. Justin Elliker is winning at a large margin over Working Families Party candidate and incumbent Tony Harp. Elliker has 10,568 votes, and Tony Harp has 4,636 votes. And those are all the updates that we have right now.
We saw in New Haven, there's certainly a big margin right now in the favor of Justin Elliker. Is this how you saw this playing out tonight?
Definitely. Because, like I said, Tony Harp definitely had a good election, but at the same time, the people of New Haven want a new field, a new New Haven.
Yeah.
Because definitely, with high unemployment rates, high crime rates going on in New Haven, it made sense.
And Elliker, he campaigned hard on the issue of education. Does New Haven need strong education reform?
Most definitely. I believe that's something that the people of New Haven has been talking about.
Yeah, and much like Seth Poole, who has been a New Haven resident his entire life, Elliker, he's a local guy. He's lived in New Haven for 11 years. He's a family man, 2 daughters. He's got clear family values and clear ties to the city. Do you feel that's impacted voters tonight and played a factor in why he has such a large lead?
Yeah, because he's a family man, and the people of New Haven definitely can relate to him. Yeah, so definitely, yeah.
Tony Harp, who is obviously the race isn't over, but she's down by a lot at this time. She campaigned mostly on her record of lowering crime, improving education, and the goal of making New Haven a more inclusive and, quote, world-class city. Her impressive body of work over the last few years, it doesn't look like it's been enough so far. Do you have any reason to why that might be?
Definitely, because like I said, the people of New Haven don't feel the same way.
Yeah.
Of course. Because they did, Justin Elliker wouldn't be where he is right now.
Yeah.
And as we still wait, so I don't know.
And one of the biggest things Elliker has said, it's on his website, it's one of the things he campaigned on. He said, one job should be enough to allow every citizen the ability to live a middle-class lifestyle. People shouldn't have to work multiple jobs. They shouldn't have to work night shifts and day shifts and not know when they're going to get to sleep or see their families and things like that. Is it realistic that one job for every citizen could allow them to have a middle-class lifestyle?
It should be. I believe everyone wants to live a good life and also have time for their family or their activities. So, of course, 2 jobs going to have an impact. Having one job is not only going to help yourself and your health out, it's definitely going to help the people around you. So definitely it's possible to do it, especially with the minimum wage going higher. It's going to help.
Yeah. And, you know, it's been a theme we've seen from candidates tonight. We saw it from Mark Boughton, which has clearly worked for him tonight. As we know, he's won the mayoral race in Danbury. The bipartisan approach. Seth Poole, he was on the ballot as a write-in, as not a Democrat, as not a Republican. With that fact, do you feel that really hurt him tonight, that he didn't have a party affiliation on the ticket?
Not really, because at the end of the day, New Haven's definitely, like I said, of all past 95 years, have been a democratic city and a college city.
Yeah.
So, of course, even though the Democratic Party already had that advantage towards them.
And switching gears to another city now, another town, specifically Middletown. Ben Florsheim, he's made headlines in this election with his age. He's just 27 years of age. He is the favorite heading into tonight, but do you feel that the fact that he is 27, he's a younger guy, do you feel that that could impact voters tonight?
No. Age is just a number. Yeah. If he has the experience and he has the knowledge that he needs to run the mayoral office of Middletown, why not?
Right.
What's stopping them?
Yeah.
Because, again, the millennials are they're the future.
Absolutely. And it's one of the old adages, if you're good enough, you're old enough.
Exactly.
Florsheim, he's worked with Senator Chris Murphy on his community outreach program for the last 5 years. How important is that experience? And another theme that we've kind of seen recurring tonight, can that translate to the mayoral office?
Definitely having a political background is going to help you. Yeah. But yes, Senator Chris, he worked with Christopher Murphy. But at the same time, being a mayor of a city is a whole different ballpark. Yeah. So hopefully he used the tactics that he learned with working with Senator Chris Murphy will help him out with the Middletown election.
And Sebastian Giuliano, who is his opponent tonight, he was Middletown's mayor from 2005 to 2011. Does his experience and does his body of work give him any sort of advantage at the polls tonight?
Yeah, he knows how it is to be the mayor of Middletown. So definitely has a little advantage. But then again, coming out of that with Middletown, I still believe Ben Florsheim definitely has a chance also. Yeah. So it could go either way too, just like Richburg.
And Giuliano, he said specifically, he wants to increase his tax base and reduce the city's spending. If you were a Middletown voter, is this something that you could get behind?
Yes, definitely. I would like to save on taxes.
Yeah.
So as the exactly.
Giuliano, he's been quick to point out when he left office, the city was in $60 million in debt. Now they're over $100 million in debt. Obviously, it's been many years since then, but looking at that fact, can that help him with voters tonight?
What's the solution? So we want to know, what is your solution? So it definitely can have an impact on the race. Definitely just knowing about his solution and what does Ben Florsheim have for this.
Yeah. Well, we'll be getting more updates from Middletown in a bit, but for now, we're going to send it out to Rachel Pete again in New Haven.
Hi, guys. It's getting a lot more packed here as the night is moving along. It's really heated, and the unofficial results are showing that there is 6,000 more votes for Ellicott in comparison to Harp right now, and it's looking like it's really heated. It's only getting more and more packed here. There hasn't been any official announcements that Ellicott may have won. But yeah, we're going to keep you updated with those numbers.
And just a reminder to our viewers out there, Rachel, you are in New Haven at Justin Ellicott's headquarters. Now, Toni Harp, she's under the Working Families Party ticket tonight. How much of a disadvantage or obstacle is it for her being on the ballot as a third-party candidate?
I would say a little bit of a disadvantage, but she unsuspended her campaign, and hearing that a lot of supporters out in the New Haven community were really rooting for her, and she came back trying to fight. She's been trying to fight, and she's in it to win it. So I don't think the Working Families Party line is really making a huge difference in this race. She's really fighting for it and making sure that she's out there. She was out there this past weekend with the People's Campaign for Toni Harp, and there was a lot of support there. There was even a little parade. So she's making an effort in the last month to unsuspend that campaign.
And one more question for you. Obviously, the Democratic primary was riddled with controversy. Is there a sense that she wants to just put that behind her and move forward and hopefully win this election tonight by moving forward?
I believe so. There's been a lot of animosity between Ellicott and Harp. Running up to the primaries, there was a lot of going back and forth, a lot of different commentary, trying to get the incumbent out of the seat. I think there has been a lot less animosity since then, and they've just been focusing on the people of New Haven and uniting them for running as mayor of New Haven. So.
Well, thank you, Rachel, and we'll be talking to you soon. Julian, hearing what she had to say there, obviously, with that update, what are kind of your thoughts around this race right now?
Ellicott.
Yeah.
Definitely, hopefully, the way it seems like he might be the mayor. So
yeah.
we'll wait and see.
Yeah. And obviously we talk about the rivalry, and we see it across politics all the time now, not just in local elections, but on bigger scales with the Democrats and Republicans and all political parties. Is there a place for political rivalries, kind of taking center stage over, I guess, to not go on too much here, but instead of politicians talking about policy, they're talking about other people and dragging them through the mud and things like that?
There should be a limit, but definitely, as you know, politics is dirty, but there definitely should be a limit where family, I believe, shouldn't be involved in your candidacy. But as we've seen in New Haven, it's a messy election, and hopefully we all could agree, but definitely has no role.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about more on this later as results come in. National populism spans the political spectrum. Let's take a look.
Populism and nationalism both have a controversial history and are rising globally, as well as within the United States. But what does it mean to be a populist or a nationalist? Populism is a political movement that mobilizes the population against the institution or government, usually in the defense of the wrong. Today I sat down with Dr. Howell Williams of Western Connecticut State University to talk about what these two terms mean.
Of course, the sort of prominent example of populism in our politics today is the president. Donald Trump uses a lot of really strong populist rhetoric as a way to drum up support amongst his base. Donald Trump employs a kind of xenophobic or nationalist populism that is about the good, hardworking Americans, but people who today feel like they are being left behind by the political system.
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
But this idea of being left behind by the political system has also been deployed in the past by left-wing causes. Some of the major figures in labor politics in America and historically have used a populist persuasion to appeal to workers.
And breaking news, as we mentioned, Mark Boughton, he has been reelected as the mayor of Danbury, and we have more on that now.
Proud I am to be running with the people that ran on this ticket. And if you won, awesome. Now we got a lead. If you didn't win, we want you to stay involved. We want to encourage you to keep involved because everybody here showed a tremendous amount of potential. I want to particularly thank some key people here that are floating around. First of all, our Council President, Joe Cabo, who came to the Fighting Third Ward. Third Ward came home big tonight. I want to thank our chairman, Jack Knapp, who puts up with all of our phone calls. I want to thank all of our council winners tonight and our people that put their name up and threw their hat into the ring. We appreciate them. We appreciate our zoning winners and those people that threw their hat in the ring as well. We appreciate them and our Board of Ed people as well. But look, at the end of the day, they threw every single thing that they had at us. Every single thing. Think about that. We had unions. We had party union leaders running around. We had Working Families Party running around. We had all these different organizations and groups that were trying to get us out of office. And guess what? They failed tonight, and we won because of you out there. I also want to thank my running mate, Stan Jowdy, in the back, who is continues to be our city treasurer. Danny, congratulations. Good job. And I want to thank Jan Gigler, who will continue to be our town clerk. Yeah. Right, yeah. She does an awesome job. So I am just so thrilled and honored to be once again entrusted with the leadership of this community. We had a nice, strong victory tonight. I'm very proud of the work that we did. Look, this is why we have an election. It's called democracy. So we go out and we do everything we can to get our vision forward of what we want to do with our city. We know we got work to do. We're going to meet those challenges together as a team. And I am certainly, again, excited to once again be the greatest city in the United States of America, the city of Danbury. She doesn't want any recognition, so we're going to pretend that they didn't recognize Celeste. So nobody clap. but to say thanks for putting us up. Give her a round of applause. The queen of absentee ballots, I might add. She's out there working all the time. And so, again, we have a great night here tonight. We're still getting some of the numbers in, but it's been a good night for us. Bucking a lot of national trends. Just shows if you do a good job, if you're on top of things, if you care about people, you have compassion for the people of this city, one city all together, it means that people will send you back to office time and time again. So, folks, 10 times. Thank you. God bless you. God bless you.
Well, obviously, we just heard Mark Boughton's winning speech. Now the 10-time mayor of Danbury, Connecticut, 130-year record. You heard him end his speech with 10 times. I'd love to just grab your guys' initial thoughts after hearing that speech and the news that Mark Boughton will be mayor of Danbury once again.
It is exceptional. Boughton mentioned that we know we've got a lot of work to do, and we're going to work together as a team. And it seems to me that while Sotero didn't succeed in this challenge against Boughton, that maybe he has pushed this community-level cooperative messaging, and we'll see that more out of Boughton in the next 2 years.
Yeah, and Boughton himself, we've mentioned it multiple times tonight, he's running, well, we'll hold this thought because we actually have breaking news right now from Rachel Pete, who's in New Haven. Rachel?
Know so well, and they have worked tirelessly and have been underpaid, even though they've been paid more than minimum wage. But they've been underpaid.
And it looks like it is an acceptance speech right now. We're trying to gather some information here on what's going on in New Haven at the Ellicott camp.
The nominee? Yeah!
It appears at this time It appears that Ellicott is giving a victory speech that he will be the mayor of New Haven. It's a little difficult for us to hear right now, but again, Justin Ellicott, he has won. He will be the new mayor of New Haven.
By quite a large margin.
Yes, as you mentioned.
What?
And it looks like we lost our footage there, but again, Justin Ellicott was giving a victory speech, therefore signaling he won. He will be the mayor of New Haven. We just mentioned it with Boughton. For you guys, what are your initial thoughts on hearing this news?
The response has been extraordinary. He won over 6,000 votes over Toni Harp. I mean, we saw this kind of coming. She did lose the primary against him in the Democratic race, but it's still exceptional to see in today's vote.
Yeah, and is it a bit... I think an interesting note was Toni Harp. She was the incumbent mayor. To lose by 6,000 votes is not something maybe you normally see. Were either of you surprised by that?
Definitely not surprised. Definitely from suspending your campaign to us suspending it. It's just a lot. It's just a lot, and especially since the people of New Haven have a concern with their city for the past 6 years.
Yeah.
I think that Ellicott was running on the idea that Yale and New Haven need a new agreement, that the communities in New Haven need reinvestment from their mayor, and that his populist message that every individual in New Haven is worthy of a single job that pays for their bills. He basically ran a campaign that connected with a lot of people in New Haven, and I think that's why we're seeing such an exceptional voting turnout for him.
Yeah. And just to go back to Danbury here, Mark Boughton, one of the things he mentioned in his acceptance speech was he knows, and everybody in his team knows, we have work to do. You mentioned that you felt Chris Sotero kind of brought that out of him, and I was mentioning before we had that acceptance speech, the bipartisan approach that Boughton goes, champions. We've mentioned it many times tonight. It almost seems like it's fitting that Chris Sotero brought some things to the light that Boughton will be working on. He's using, his opponent, a Democrat, his beliefs and what he felt were problems in Danbury, and he knows that those are problems we have. He doesn't have a problem that comes from the other political party. He's going to bring that to the light, and he's going to try and fix the roads. He's going to fix the overcrowding in schools, and I think that it's important to recognize that his bipartisan approach is something that we've seen other mayors take, and he's pushing forward in Danbury. And for that thought, we have breaking news. We have an acceptance speech from Joe Ganim in Bridgeport. We'll take you there live right now.
What looks like almost every precinct in the city, in every part of the city, some by 2, 3, and 4 times our closest supplier. To you, the voters of the city of Bridgeport, again, I say thank you for the honor to serve. Thank you for the great victory. My family, who obviously are here with me tonight, many of them, many are not, and to our friends, and to all those who continue to believe in what was at one point called an improbable comeback. Some said could never happen. And then to turn around today with overwhelming endorsement by the people of the city of Bridgeport. In some areas they call a landslide victory because of you. Because of your hard work.
Just a reminder to everybody out there, we're watching Joe Ganem's victory speech. He has been reelected mayor of Bridgeport.
Tomorrow, we have our commitment back to them to work every day to continue to help reduce the tax burdens in the city of Bridgeport, to commit more funding to education, to commit to safer and greener streets throughout our city, to watch this great city get better and better and better. We love this city. We work every day to make that happen for the people of Bridgeport. Elections have winners and losers. I like to believe not only in a competitive sense, but that all the people of the city of Bridgeport are winners tonight. Those that maybe haven't felt message, and maybe were not a part of this team. I reach out to them as well. Whether they had 2 supporters, 200 supporters, or 2,000 supporters, they have a message. Which means they care about the city. And they may, in fact, have some people off. We welcome them, their input, their support, to be a part of Bridgeport's success. You agree with me? And you are everyone who cares about this city. So with that,
All right, and just a reminder to our viewers there, Joe Ganem, we were just tuned in on his acceptance speech as mayor of Bridgeport. He has been reelected. What does this mean for Bridgeport, guys? Joe Ganem back in office.
He is the son of Bridgeport. Definitely he has the connection with the people of Bridgeport, the hearts of the people of Bridgeport, and it proves it. He proves it tonight.
I think he really did. He proved something, especially with all the controversy around this campaign. That he pulled it out with the votes is exceptional. Obviously, it took us a little bit to get the votes counted in here because they had to count each of the write-in votes for Marilyn Moore. But Ganem's campaign, it ends now, but I think we'll be seeing into the first few months of his next term as mayor the remnants of this the SEEC investigation, these investigations into voter malfeasance, and I wonder if it'll put a damper on his first few months in office in this new term.
And just to reiterate to everybody, the winners so far, we just saw Joe Ganem in Bridgeport. Justin Elliker was elected mayor. Mark Boughton was reelected in Danbury, and Aaron Stewart was reelected in New Britain. Back to Ganem now. You mentioned those investigations. You know, Ganem, do people have a right as a voter, and now that he has been elected, do you have the rights as citizens to have some fear that he did win this election, considering his political and criminal past and the ongoing investigations we've seen?
Well, I think especially because he was elected as mayor, you work for the city. So if the members of your city have some concerns about the way that you won or the current processes in the election system in Bridgeport, then this is the way to make them heard. He is responsible for helping his constituents feel comfortable in Bridgeport. If it wasn't his camp, if these irregularities didn't stem from his own operations, then it's his responsibility as mayor to make sure that whatever issues caused those voting irregularities are solved. Yeah.
And on the case of Marilyn Moore, who obviously faced defeat tonight, alongside Republican John Rodriguez, If you were a part of their camp right now, how would you be feeling?
I wouldn't have felt discouraged. You know, they run a solid campaign, and hopefully, I wonder what she has in stores.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that she reinstituted a campaign that was shut down, and that shows a fortitude of spirit. I'm interested to see where we'll see her in the political sphere in Connecticut moving forward.
Absolutely. And just to touch back on John Rodriguez, the 10-to-1 advantage, maybe less about John Rodriguez and more about the city, a 10-to-1 advantage in Democratic voters. Do you guys see any time in the near future where that gap could be closed between Republicans and Democrats in the city of Bridgeport?
Maybe just more understanding between the people and the candidates, the Republican candidates at least.
Yeah.
You need to be more outgoing, more out there with the people of Bridgeport. Could be definitely like that because, as you know, the mayor, Joe Gannon, he's definitely been out in the community, going everywhere, so he's very known, visible. I really haven't seen Rodriguez at all.
I think that a lot of the Republican candidates in the cities we've been following could learn a little something from the race that we're seeing in Danbury that just closed down. That was a close race between a Democrat and a Republican, and Danbury is a quite liberal place otherwise that has held a Republican mayor for 9 terms, now 10 terms. So maybe the more bipartisan approach of Danbury's politics could be reiterated in some other Connecticut cities to see Republican leadership moving forward.
Yeah. And to kind of switch gears here to, one sec, guys, we actually have breaking news again. We have Mayor Boughton joining us live now. Mr. Mayor, can you hear us?
Yeah, he can hear you. What's it?
Gotcha. Go ahead,
We are
Ian.
here live with Mayor Mark Boughton. How does it feel with your 10th consecutive term?
You know, it's pretty amazing. Anytime the voters entrust you in their care, it's a big deal. And, you know, we're just so excited. It was a hard-fought race. It was a fair race. I think both sides worked their tails off. And it's a good exercise in democracy here in Danbury. So I'm honored and proud to have won again and look forward to the upcoming term. And we'll work with Republicans, Democrats, Independents, whoever, to make sure that we get the things done we need to get done for Danbury.
It seems like the city of Danbury has just embraced you. How does that make you feel as being the mayor of this great city?
Well, you know, we had people threw all kinds of stuff at us, from the union bosses to working families to all kinds of special interest groups, and yet the residents weren't fooled, right? And they really believe that Danbury's on the right track. So great night for us, hard-fought campaign on both sides, but I'm very, very proud of the victory tonight. It's probably one of my best ones ever, so it's a big deal.
Awesome. One last question for you. Going forward, do you have any plans, any breaking news that you want to reveal to the people of this great city?
Nope. I'm just happy being mayor of Danbury. It's an honor, and I love what I do. So it's just an honor.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Congratulations. We are WCSU.
Thank you so much, Ian. Cut you off there a little bit, but obviously hearing that, Boughton said he doesn't have any, breaking news. He doesn't have any immediate plans, but for you guys, as people who go to school here in Danbury, what are the things you'll be looking for in the start of this new term for Mark Boughton?
Definitely the infrastructure and the connection from Danbury to Grand Central.
Yeah.
I think that we want to see some fulfillment on these promises. You mentioned the new train line. I would love to see that actually come to Danbury. And he mentioned that he wants to start working and has been working with Republicans, Democrats, Independents. I would love to see that cooperation extend to those special interest groups that he kind of shaded in his interview there, and to some of these more niche-focused groups that have ideas for Danbury that are maybe different than the prevailing parties.
And on that note, one of the criticisms that Boughton has faced coming into this election was that he's shown an inability to, quote, embrace the city's diversity. Are those claims warranted? Are they founded?
I think we've seen a lot of change out of Mayor Boughton over the 18 years that he's been mayor. I think that it's possible that he didn't initially have a strong connection with the immigrant communities and diverse communities in Danbury. But I think that a lot of residents would say you see him at our community events. You see him trying to make connections with people both like him and not like him in Danbury. There are probably ways that he can improve, but I don't think that he is disconnected or isolated from these communities.
All right, well, it's been a very, very exciting night, and it is not over yet. But for now, we're going to send it over for another update on our weather.
The good news is with all these all the votes coming in, the weather right now is cooperating for anyone heading out there. Cooling temperatures, drying, clearing conditions. So we're not talking about any heavy rain or wind like we saw before. A nice evening for those going out to celebrate. Be careful on the ride home, though. Temperatures will be getting colder as we go through the next couple of hours. But tomorrow, cool as well. So for Wednesday, not as warm as you saw today. Temperatures closer to 50 versus the 60. That's where we were today. 60 degrees was the high around the Danbury area today. Rain and a couple of snowflakes possible Thursday night tomorrow, or say Thursday night into Friday morning. That could bring a touch of snow across the Northwest Hills, probably a flake or two elsewhere as the cold air wraps through the system. And that cold air comes in with punch for Friday through Sunday, talking about highs in the 30s, lows in the teens. So real big winter chill is on its way. Next map's going to show you the temperatures around the state this evening. They were around 60 degrees, 60 in Hartford, 60 in Bridgeport, and in New York City. 57 was the temperature here in Danbury. So it was on the mild side, but we're going to lower the temperatures throughout the evening tonight and into tomorrow. The next map's going to show you tomorrow's forecast for Wednesday. Right now we're talking about temperatures around 50 degrees, so overall a little bit cooler than we were today, but not cold like we're going to be in a couple of days. The next map we're going to show you the big story of the week. So we had the potential snowstorm early in the week for Thursday. Now a rainstorm because the storm's tracking right overhead. If you want a snowstorm in Connecticut, guys, you want the storm to form right down here because we have the cold air in place, bringing enough cold air for some snow. Unfortunately, with the storm right overhead, that's going to bring the warm air in from the south. So this kind of white shading, that's where it's going to snow in northern New England. But here in southern New England, which is here in Danbury, we're talking about mainly rain. Could be a couple of wet snowflakes on the backside. The next map will show you the future radar for around 11 o'clock Thursday night. Notice the blue, that's snow not too far away. The latest model that just came in, unfortunately, I was not able to get it on the map here, but shows a little bit more snow actually in northwest Connecticut. But overall, I think rain will be the likelihood across the state with a couple of snowflakes in the Danbury area, maybe a quick coating to maybe an inch in the Northwest Hills. By Friday morning, shouldn't do too much. But one thing that will do a lot is just changing the pattern. The next map's going to show you a big dip in the jet stream. That's going to come this weekend. That could bring, or that will bring, the cold temperatures, highs in around 40, lows in the teens. The big question is, will it bring snow? Some models indicate a storm's going to form off the East Coast around Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Could bring us our first plowable snow. Don't forget, it's only mid-February or mid-November, I should say, at that time frame. So to get a big snow mid-November, we're talking about, that'd be pretty epic. We saw it last year. We could do it again this year. And for temperatures on Saturday morning, we're talking about, look at this, around 20 to start in the Northwest Hills, 25 to 30 along the shore. We should be closer to the mid to upper 30s. Highs will be only in the mid to upper 30s. That's the average low. So it's going to be very cold as we head into the day on Saturday. So if you have any plans for Saturday, please do not forget the heavier coat and gloves. Tonight's forecast around mid-30s, so where we should be, early clouds. But again, if you're heading back from any events tonight, please bundle up. It will be on the cool side. Tomorrow, you're celebrating with your fans or your family. Those that won the races, congratulations. I know we have Mayor Mark Bowden reelected here in Danbury. Congrats to him. Looks like a great morning to celebrate. Lots of sun, a little bit cool to start, and a light wind out of the west to 5 miles per hour. The extended forecast, not too bad, like I said, for tomorrow, but Thursday, afternoon clouds that rain to maybe a few wet snowflakes by the evening hours. Most of us stay rain. Could not rule out a quick snowflake for most towns. But again, the accumulating snow would be extreme northwest Connecticut. They could see a little bit more snow there. Cold on Friday, feeling like the 20s all day with the gusty wind, only around 40 on the thermometer, going down to 17 by Saturday morning, 40 for a high, so even colder by Saturday with the sun at least, though, so no wind on Saturday. And then Sunday a little bit warmer, closer to 50. Again, watch that forecast. Early next week, there could be the potential for a first major snow. We have a lot more to come here on Electric Connection. We'll send it back to you guys at the desk.
Thank you for that update, Zach. And just a reminder to all our commuters coming to Western Connecticut and everywhere around the state to be safe when it snows on the roads. For now, we're going to switch gears. National populism is defined as the political ideology which combines right-wing politics and populist rhetoric and themes. The ideology is gaining steam, but what does it really mean? Let's take a look.
Populism and nationalism both have a controversial history and are rising globally, as well as within the United States. But what does it mean to be a populist or a nationalist? Populism is a political movement that mobilizes the population against the institution or government, usually in the defense of the wrong. Today I sat down with Dr. Howell Williams of Western Connecticut State University to talk about what these two terms mean.
Of course, the sort of prominent example of populism in our politics today is the president. Donald Trump uses a lot of really strong populist rhetoric as a way to drum up support amongst his base. Donald Trump employs a kind of xenophobic or nationalist populism that is about the good, hardworking Americans, but people who today feel like they are being left behind by the political system.
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
But this idea of being left behind by the political system has also been deployed in the past by left-wing causes. Some of the major figures in labor politics in America and historically have used a populist persuasion to appeal to workers in order to bring about higher wages, better working conditions, etc.
And the way we get structural change is we need more power back in the hands of employees. That means make it easier to join a union and give unions more power. Unions built America's middle class. Unions will rebuild America's middle class.
Thank you so much, TJ.
According to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, nationalism is defined as loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially a sense of national consciousness.
Nationalists try to use national symbols, flags, mythologies as a way to posit the betterness or the goodness of the people that are from that nation. But oftentimes nationalism is used more narrowly to focus on others that are not desirable for whatever reason.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us.
While not inherently good or bad, there's no doubt that populism and nationalism are both on the rise. Time can only tell what this means for politics in the future. For WCSU News, I'm Gordon Mochio.
Important stuff there, and I'd love to gain your guys' initial thoughts after watching that news package.
Well, national populism is a political ideology which combines right-wing politics and populist rhetoric. So essentially what we're looking at is a type of populism focused on individuals in mass that takes right-wing politics and maybe brings it a little bit further. The ideology is gaining some steam, but I'm not sure how it's impacting this election, or how it's going to impact the next one.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think it's important that we've said it twice now, kind of the definition that it's one of those words that's out there and people don't necessarily know exactly what it means. I think it's something that will be around certainly heading into this next election. How do you guys see it impacting, from the Democratic side or the Republican side?
As of right now, I don't see any impact. I don't know about you guys.
I think one of the things is that populism has become so prevalent in the national political scene. We're seeing it from Trump, who is our main Republican figure. Right now, we're not getting, aside from a handful of potentials, we're not really getting a Republican challenger yet for Trump. And we've got the Democrats coming up, and you definitely get a wave of some kind of populism from candidates like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, who are appealing to a certain type of person who is very union-focused, very labor-focused. So it definitely has changed the mode of our politics, but it feels a little bit like when you start boiling the pot so the frog doesn't jump out. So I think we're a lot more adjusted to it now than we would have been 4 years ago.
And to switch gears a little bit here, one of the races that we haven't gotten too many updates on in terms of final results is Hartford. J. Stan McCauley, the Democrat running on the Republican ticket, going up against Luke Bronin. J. Stan McCauley, he's called for comprehensive reform on the systems of public safety, the school system, and, to be honest, pretty much all crucial city functions. Does Hartford, our capital city, need such drastic reforms?
It definitely does, but is that going to be enough for him to win the election? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Macaulay definitely has a lot of criticisms of how Hartford is being run right now. And most of them are on this community level approach. I don't think it's likely that we see him win at the end of tonight. It doesn't seem possible for him to defeat this Goliath in Luke Bronin, especially as an incumbent. But this might be another situation where it would be nice to see Bronin taken some of those positions from Macaulay and his support network and apply it to how he changes Hartford in the next 2 years.
And in terms of Hartford specifically, it is the capital city, it is the biggest city in Connecticut. Does the mayor of that city sort of have a greater responsibility than other mayors across the state in terms of how that city is run, as kind of maybe leading by example?
Definitely has a role model role, being the capital city. Everything is ran in Hartford, so definitely has a major role.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times we'll look to major cities' mayors for guidance. Rudy Giuliani for a long time was called America's mayor for his response to 9/11. And Luke Bronin, well, luckily he hasn't had to respond to as great a tragedy. He has handled a financial situation in Hartford with a lot of tact and basically recovered our capital from a financial crisis. So I think it's possible that he has a leadership role for the state on a mayoral level that is exceptional.
Yeah. Well, again, we're going to switch gears here. We have Rachel Peete once again, who is standing by in New Haven.
Hi guys, we are still here at Elliker's watching party here at Next Door in downtown New Haven, and we actually have an interview set up here with one of the members of the campaign party that has been volunteering, helping gain support for Elliker's campaign. And this is Ray Jackson here. Thank you for being here tonight and helping us celebrate.
Well, hey, I'm going to do my best. I'm about to fall asleep. This has been like a 14-hour day. And I'll tell you, I don't know how I feel right now. But, I tell you, it really pays off, at the end of the day to have this win. Because when, like we win, New Haven wins. Whether they know it or not, this is going to be a new change in New Haven. And, I really, truly believe that, if we can all pull together, it'll be a brighter day.
Thank you. Yes, I believe in a lot of those thoughts that you just shared with us. And how long have you been a New Haven resident here, and what attracted you to spread awareness and gain support for Elliker and go out into the community and let people know about Elliker? As you mentioned, not many people really were aware of Elliker back in 2013 when he ran up against Hart back then, but now he's really gained a lot of momentum. What attracted you to gain support for Elliker in this campaign?
Well, they have these two nice people that I met back a little while ago, the Joiners. And, they know I always wanted to make a difference in helping kids and all this stuff in New Haven. So, in order to do that, you got to get a better, footing and, administration downtown. When you need help, you need help. And so he introduced me to Justin's team.
Sorry, thank you. That was a lot. And so much. Thank you for the interview, and I'm really happy that we could celebrate together here tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Rachel. For now, we actually have another interview. Breaking news. We have an interview now with Joe Ganim. We'll send it out there live. We'll actually come back in just a second, but let's touch on New Haven, what we just heard there. He mentioned, he wanted to make a difference. That's why he went with Elliker. That's why he supported Elliker. What does that say about Elliker that, someone like him who wanted to make a difference backed his campaign?
Exactly what I said earlier. They wanted to change. Definitely Tony Harper lacks something that Justin Elliker had brought to the table. Right. And that's what we see today, tonight.
I think we're seeing a lot of people spurred to volunteer work, spurred to community engagement because they want to see differences in their city, especially in New Haven.
Yeah. And I guess on a larger scale, do you feel that voters when they go to the booth, they kind of have that mentality of, I want to make a difference, and I'm going to do that right now by voting for mayor and other treasurer and other positions throughout the city. Do you think that the voter mentality is going into the booth thinking they're going to make a difference?
Of course. It's their city. They live in it. Yeah. So whatever their vote counts. How you want to live in this city depends on your vote. So yes, it's a major key.
Well, we're seeing lowish voter turnout for Connecticut's municipal elections. I think we are seeing a big growth in these volunteer people, these people who are engaging civically. And I'm interested to see the way they'll translate how they've worked on these mayoral campaigns and local campaigns to the big 2020 election next year.
Yeah. And again, we are going to try and get out to Joe Ganim in that interview in just a minute. In the meantime, I want to read you a couple notable quotes regarding Joe Ganim. Joe D'Avila of the Wall Street Journal called his return to politics an improbable political comeback. The New York Times reported Ganim's election victory a few years back as a stunning return to public office, remarkable for its sheer audacity, coming after a widely publicized fall from grace. Do you guys see it that way, and do you agree with these statements?
The people of Bridgeport have forgiven Mayor Joe Ganim. He is their son. Yeah. As you can see now, he's returning back to the office.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Joe Ganim has a strong history with Bridgeport. He has a connection there, and there's a positive story here potentially about someone who succeeded so well in his reentry after imprisonment that he returned to the mayorship that he left.
And in terms of looking at his opponent, Marilyn Moore, she faced, as we mentioned, a massive challenge going in as a write-in candidate. How difficult of a challenge did that prove to be tonight?
She definitely had, like a guy of Joe Ganim as an opponent. It could be, for anybody, it would be hard. Yeah. But she definitely had a strong campaign, and if I was her, I wouldn't feel discouraged at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see where Marilyn Moore goes next, especially in Bridgeport. I hope that we'll see her again in the next mayoral cycle, but I also hope she finds a good spot in Connecticut politics or beyond, because she ran a really strong campaign appealing to Bridgeport's voters, and clearly a lot of them were hoping to see her in this.
Yeah, and back on Joe Ganim now, that comeback, having gone to prison for a number of years, done his time, and then once again rising as the mayor of the city, does that maybe, I guess it could be a stretch here, but does it set an example for other people across the country that, even if you fall or you mess up, earlier in life, there's always a chance to come back and there's always a chance to succeed. Is that kind of the example that Ganim has set here?
Of course, because he did his time, he understood what he did was wrong, and he got back on his feet. Yeah. I just wonder how many terms he's going to do next. Is it going to be like another Mark Boughton?
Yeah.
Never know.
I do think that the Joe Ganim story in general is a very positive one for reentry. But I think a lot of people who supported Moore during this election cycle and people who are curious about the inquiry into voting irregularities in the primary are going to be a little bit more cautious or critical of Ganim moving forward until that investigation ends.
And in terms of Bridgeport, we know it's, again, one of the bigger cities here in Connecticut, one of the more important cities here in Connecticut. Under Ganim's leadership, where do you see them going next?
Well, Bridgeport is, like you said, one of Connecticut's most prominent cities. Ganim has these strong community ties, and I think that should allow him to basically rally Bridgeport's communities to make the changes that he's been running on. Hopefully we'll see more progress for the city in economic development and all the areas that voters have been focusing on during this campaign cycle.
Yeah. And to switch gears again here, Middletown, we're still waiting for the official results of that mayoral race. Incumbent Mayor Dan Drew, it's worth noting, he decided not to run for re-election tonight. And seeing as Giuliano is the only person on the ticket with previous mayoral experience in Middletown itself, does that give him an advantage in the polls tonight against Florsheim?
He definitely has an advantage being the mayor and knowing how it is to be a mayor of a city like Middletown. He definitely has an upper hand, but also very interesting to see a 27-year-old mayor in office also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's possible that Middletown is looking for a millennial mayor to take them through their next term. Florsheim is not a native of Middletown, but he has strong ties to the community. He's a Wesleyan alumni, and it's possible that he's really going to resonate with the youth in Middletown tonight, and that might take him through this short lead he's got to the finish line.
Yeah. All right. Well, for now, we have Gabe Jones, who is standing by live in Bridgeport.
Yes, thank you. We are here at the campaign party for Joseph Ganim in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and he has just pulled off a win against his opponents. The room was livid with excitement and cheer and jubilation, and all of his supporters were very, very happy. He was able to win with a 72%, win against John Rodriguez with a 27% vote. And he is very, very excited to have taken the win here tonight on Election Day.
So much for that update, Gabe. And if anything else comes about, I'm sure we'll check back in with you again later. Thanks. All right, guys, we heard what Gabe had to say there. 72% of the vote going to Ganim. 27, surprisingly, to John Rodriguez, meaning only 1% went to Marilyn Moore. Does that surprise you guys?
Well, we're waiting for our unofficial numbers right now, so this is coming out of the Ganim camp. But if those numbers hold to be true, it's quite interesting. I think that maybe we had a lot more faith in Marilyn Moore's resurgent campaign as she picked it back up again. But the boundary, she couldn't get her name back on that ballot. She had to be fully write-in. And we know that write-in candidates just really do not make it in these elections.
Yeah, absolutely. And 72%, it seems like a very staggering number. Was that a number that, you guys maybe expected coming into tonight, 72% of the vote?
Of course. I mean, confirms what we've been saying. Like, he has a connection with the people of Bridgeport. Mm-hmm.
I also think that, John Rodriguez held out a good campaign. It's just not likely that a Republican was going to take Bridgeport tonight. So with the write-in handicap for Marilyn Moore, I think it stands to reason that Joe Ganim would clean up in the votes tonight.
And on the note of John Rodriguez, we noticed personally doing our research for this show that he had a bit of a lack of an online presence in his campaign. It was very difficult to find his campaign website. Do you think that played a factor tonight?
Of course. I believe that he was not known to the community. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, it's possible that he was known to his direct supporters in the Republican committee and throughout city government, but when you're running for mayor, you really have to connect with your general constituency, especially the people who aren't following the race so closely as to know the names of every single person who's running. You really have to get to them, and one of the ways that we're getting to voters right now is through a professional social media presence.
All right. Well, I just want to remind everybody here that this is Election Connection. We're broadcasting live on WCXI 91.7 FM in Danbury, CT. You can also catch us on Comcast 97 and WCSU.edu/live. You are watching Election Connection, our live news and election coverage over Danbury Comcast Channel 97, WXCI 91.7 FM, and streaming over WCSU.edu/live. I'm Cameron O'Brien.
And I'm Julian Duress. Do you have a question or a comment? You can call now at Election Connection 203-837-9182 and tweet us at ElectionCT.
The polls have been closed for a couple of hours now. Let's take a look at the big board with Audrey Nielsen and the local races here in Connecticut. Actually, let's hold off on that because Audrey Nielsen is actually right here at the desk with us.
Yes.
But we can do an overview on these races. Take it away.
Yeah, so let's run through some of these numbers. In Danbury, incumbent Mayor Mark Boughton, the Republican candidate, secured his historic 10th term with a over 1,000-point lead so far on Democratic challenger Chris Sotero. In Hartford, we don't have our current numbers up yet, but we will update you when we do. Middletown, we're looking at Ben Florsheim with a 700-point lead, almost 700-point lead over Sebastian Giuliano, who previously served as the mayor of Middletown. And we'll update you as those numbers update. In New Haven, we have that exceptional lead with Democrat Justin Elicker at 10,568 votes against Tony Hart with the Working Family Party and the incumbent mayor of New Haven at only 4,636 votes. We don't yet have our numbers from Bridgeport. We will update you throughout the broadcast tonight as we do.
Well, I wanted to go and touch back, as you just mentioned, Mark Boughton. He's got his record 10th term. There's many people out there who are staunchly against a, quote, mayor for life. Do you see a problem in someone spending as much time as Boughton has in one political position?
I think, as we've touched on a little bit tonight, that Mark Boughton serves at the will of the people. It is possible eventually, I think, for politics to become stale. 10 terms is a long time. When he completes this coming 10th term, he will have been mayor for 20 years, which is a full-grown person who could go to WestCon as a student. And it's possible that the decision-making timeline expands. You're no longer just mayor for 2 years moving forward, and you have to get your policy done in those 2 years. You're mayor for a decade. But I think we've seen from Boughton a promise that he has kept his timeline quick, that he will address projects, that he will complete them. And I'm excited to see what that'll look like for the town of Danbury.
Yeah, right. And we talked about Boughton's body of work, obviously, because he has been mayor for 18 years now. Was one of Sotaro's biggest obstacles tonight being, the argument of why change? Things are going very well in Danbury. They're one of the highest rated in many metrics in the state in terms of comparing them to other cities. Many magazines and things like that have said Danbury is one of the best places to live in this country. Was that one of the obstacles for Sotaro tonight, the argument of why change?
I think that's definitely the talking point that the Boughton camp was putting out in the last few weeks of this election. And certainly there must be voters who feel that way. What it might also be is just a factor of messaging. Well, this campaign was out there and in the public sphere in Danbury constantly. I know we all have seen signs posted all around town. There's a little bit of a difference in social media reach and in other ways to connect with the community. Mayor Boughton has established himself, I think he was once referred to as the Twitter mayor. He connects with students, with other members of the community on the regular, and I think that it was probably very difficult for Chris Sotaro to match that level of access to the voter pool.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of switch gears to Middletown now, you mentioned Ben Florsheim has an over 1,000-point lead at this time. We talked about it earlier, but for some of our viewers that may not have been here a couple of hours ago, he's made headlines with his age, just 27 years old. You mentioned that, this is very much, the millennial kind of era, the millennials, having faith in someone like this. Do you think this is a direct reflection, his 1,000-point lead at this time? Is this a direct reflection of him sort of reaching the millennial crowd? And sorry, I hate to hold you off here, but we have breaking news. Joe Ganim standing by live.
All right. Hello, yes. We are here live with the winner himself, Mayor Joseph Ganim. Mayor Ganim, you have pulled off a triumphant win. How does it feel to be mayor once again here in Bridgeport?
Well, even though this is my 7th time being elected or reelected, it's frankly as humbling as it was not just 4 years ago, but even my first election. And the challenges that I look forward to working with everyone in the city of Bridgeport on are still there and need to be addressed. And we've accomplished a great deal in the last 4 years, communicated that well, I think, to the voters. They reelected me and the team by overwhelming numbers throughout the city. But we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm committed to doing that. And I thank everyone who came out and voted. Thank you, Bridgeport.
Yes, it seems like the people of Bridgeport are very passionate about you taking this win yet again. Now, which policy would you say is the most crucial to push forward now that you have reclaimed your position?
There's never one thing. When you have a city, Connecticut's largest city, a city the size of Bridgeport, we're working to keep the taxes down, hopefully to cut them again next year, because in Connecticut, cities suffer from high property taxes, the way the system is set up, and we fight back against that. We want to commit, and we will commit, more funding to education and make this the best quality education, public education system that we can in the city. Hopefully, in my 4 years, we'll be standing here talking about how it's improved every year after year. In public safety, and with $1 billion of investment going on in the city of Bridgeport, especially along the waterfront, with Steel Point, with the outdoor amphitheater by Live Nation, one of the premier entertainment companies in the world, you see Bridgeport become a destination along the waterfront in Connecticut. It's an exciting thing. I'm happy to be the mayor who is part of making this happen.
Well, thank you very much, Joseph Ganim. That was a very, very, very intriguing answer.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Back to you, Cameron.
So much, Gabe. Just to remind everybody out there, Joe Ganim, he has been reelected mayor of Bridgeport. I'd love to gain your guys' initial thoughts after hearing that interview.
I think that Ganim is a strong speaker. He spoke a little bit about how he and the people of Bridgeport have tackled their challenges and that they will continue to tackle those challenges in his next term. He mentioned that he wants to commit to education. He wants to increase the quality of the public education in Bridgeport. And I think that that's a message that's really going to resonate with his new and existing supports.
Definitely talking about public safety, which we know is a major issue, and definitely one of the top priorities for the people of Bridgeport, which he said he's going to work on. Yeah, it's very promising.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, one of the big key words that stuck out there was the term humbled. He mentioned how humbled he was even after all these times that he's been reelected now, that he was still humbled by the people of Bridgeport. That unofficial number, 72% in his favor. As a voter, as somebody who, in Connecticut, do you like to hear a word like that? Somebody saying they're humbled, somebody staying, low to the ground in a sense. As a member of that city, would you feel, are those the words you want to hear?
Of course, as a voter and as a citizen, I would of course love this. Definitely, I would feel related to Joe Ganim in those type of words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Joe Ganim's taking the right tact, similar one to some of the mayors that we've seen speak tonight, which is embrace both the people who voted for you and the people who didn't.
Yeah, and he also mentioned that there's never one thing specifically that he's looking to attack or he's looking to change in terms of policy in the city. Is that something that you guys are in agreement with, and you like that sort of ideology, that wholesome view that he's taking in terms of policy, or would you like him to focus maybe on one thing at a time?
There's always a place for improvement in any sector, any subject. Definitely, where there's change, there needs to be change. Where there's needs to be status quo, status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Ganim has a smart approach to answering that question, because if you narrow down one specific policy, especially as an incumbent and returning mayor, you're inevitably going to be disappointing some of your voters. So when you're returning as mayor, I think you need to have a wider set of issues that you're looking at.
And another thing that he mentioned was high property tax here in Connecticut, that he feels that that's a major issue that he has to fight and that everyone in Connecticut has to kind of combat. How big of an issue is high property tax in this state?
It's an exceptional issue. It's hard for mayors to attack that as an issue other than to bring it up and to forward the conversation. But it's definitely a complaint that Connecticut residents have had for years and will probably continue to argue about into our next statewide elections.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, shifting again here back to Hartford, we're still waiting for unofficial results and numbers out of Hartford, but one of the candidates, J. Stan McCauley, he'd been calling for accountability from the Hartford PD. This is an issue that doesn't just affect Hartford, but affects the country as a whole. Do our country's police forces have to be held more accountable?
Of course, where there is wrong, there has to be justice. Whatever has to be fixed needs to be fixed.
Yeah,
so definitely.
Yeah, I think that it's important for every city to address their relationship that they've established between their police and between their residents, especially as national stories get bigger coverage and people feel less safe in their communities. If they have that direct relationship with the police in their city, they're going to feel much safer, and their confidence will be less rocked when things do go wrong.
Absolutely. And that's a major issue. And a couple of other major issues that we have are climate change and immigration and what they mean to each other. Let's take a look on more on that now.
We all seem to be aware of the effects of climate change with weather patterns taking place all around us. However, very few of the billions of people on our globe are aware of the underlying effects, the changes in human migration patterns, too, that are taking place. This global and local issue has been coined climigration. According to National Geographic, climate change is the long-term alteration of temperature and normal weather patterns in a place, in which these alterations have been said to displace 143 million climate migrants by the year 2050.
Climate change is everything change. And so those buildup of heat in the atmosphere is going to lead to melting ice, to rising sea levels, to changes in the speed and the strength of hurricanes. And it's going to make dry places drier and wet places wetter. And those people who live in those wet and dry places are going to, some of them, get up and leave.
Outside of the States, this everything change has been wreaking havoc on communities throughout the developing world, such as in Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Asia. One of the most affected nations facing this pressure world issue is Bangladesh over the last decade, where the Environmental Justice Foundation has recorded between 1,000 to 2,000 people moving to the Bangladeshi capital every day due to climate-induced displacement, and the migration is only increasing over the years.
Just a couple months back, I was in Bangladesh near the coastal area. So, along the coast is population is declining. So if you look at the country Bangladesh, for example, population is increasing, but it's only the place which is very near to the coast, population is declining, which indicates that people are moving out of those places.
Speaking of impact along coastlines, right here in the tri-state area, coastal communities have been confronting the aftermath of major storms like in New York City with Hurricane Sandy in 2012. According to the New Republic, it wasn't the water or the winds that pushed them out, but the storm's economic setbacks. It's an economic retreat. Although the consequences haven't affected us directly, this economic downfall, amongst others, will only lead to further migration, ultimately causing migration from one of the most economically thriving urban centers in the states to surrounding suburbs, like here in Danbury, Connecticut.
First thing you can do is vote for people who accept science. The other thing is self-educate. I'm a professor, I'm an educator. I spend much of my waking hours trying to figure out how to explain this stuff to students because it's your world. You have the most to use.
This has been Andrew Coker with WCSU Election Connection.
Important stuff there, and the question I want to pose to you guys is on that theme. Why is climigration such an important issue in today's world?
It's exceptionally important because as we face climate change in the long term, as we see the way it starts to impact different countries, different populations, we're going to see more immigration as the result of climate change making people's original homes unlivable, of changing the political situation around limited resources, force them out of their homes and into new ones. It's going to become more of a problem as climate change becomes more of a problem.
Yeah, it's going to be a domino effect, because not only it's going to have a lot of migration problems, but also an economic problem.
Yeah.
So definitely it's going to be like a domino effect. One hits the other.
And is there a responsibility from, I guess, local governments, but more federal governments to help out, people who are forced to move due to the effects of climate change?
Yeah, I think that many voters are split on this issue, but if you are of the camp that believes in climate change as a huge moral imperative for America to address, then you're probably also of the camp that the U.S. and other countries have a responsibility to open up resources to people who have been pushed out of their home, especially if you take into consideration how much each individual country has contributed to the degradation of the ozone layer and other aspects that might have exacerbated climate change or might continue to exacerbate it.
Yeah. And does, obviously, climate change is a bit of a divisive issue in our local, not local, but our grand political climate, for lack of a better word. Is that having an effect, people on both sides of the coin in terms of climate change, is that having an effect on, issues like this being taken seriously?
Anything that has an effect on our planet's got an effect on us and our well-being. Yeah. So it's one of the most important issues that we should all take seriously.
Yeah, the organization Reimagining Migration says that climate change is something called a threat multiplier. So refugees who are impacted by economic stress, by political instability, by war, by all of these other issues, that stress is multiplied tenfold by the impacts of climate change. So I think we're going to see moving forward a lot more refugees who could be described as climate migrants or environmental refugees. And it'll be up to individual countries to start making definitions and policies that address these new communities. Yeah.
And I just want to give all our viewers out there a quick overview of some of the races that we've been keeping an eye on tonight. Joe Ganim has been reelected as mayor of Bridgeport. Mark Boughton has been reelected as mayor of Danbury. Two of the bigger ones that we are paying attention to tonight, as well as in New Haven, Justin Elicker has taken that race as well. He will be the next mayor of New Haven. Just a reminder that you're watching Election Connection. It's Western Connecticut State University's live news and election coverage. We're broadcasting over Danbury Comcast Channel 97, WXCI 91.7 FM, Danbury, Connecticut, and streaming over wcsu.edu/live. Stay tuned.
Your sneeze produces 5,000 bacteria-filled droplets, and they can travel 10 feet. So sneeze into your sleeve, and you'll reduce the spread of infection. Get the facts. It's good for you, Connecticut. It's good for all of us.
About half the people using public restrooms don't wash their hands. But it's the most effective way to prevent infection. It's simple. Just wash your hands. Get the facts. It's good for you, Connecticut. It's good for all of us.
Welcome back. We have a question from WCSU alumni Jason Ferenzi. He says, are the policies of this year's candidates and winners centered in national issues, or are they more concerned with issues pertaining to their districts? What do you guys think?
Well, for me, I think it's a little bit of both. We look at a specific example. Joe Ganim was talking about property tax in Connecticut and how high it is and how we have to fight that. Obviously, that's a major issue in Connecticut, but in other states, it's not necessarily a major issue. But at the same time, I think, it's important to remember, maybe a bit of a cliche, but it's the United States of America. A lot of us have similar problems in Danbury, Connecticut, to a city in California or Alaska or Texas. So I think the mayors are focusing a lot on, national issues, but also at the same time, there's certainly issues that we have here locally that they're taking care of as well.
Yeah, just to add on to what Cam said, it's a local issue because one city could have a different problem than the other city, like Danbury or Bridgeport, different problems. So yeah, definitely it's a local issue.
Yeah, and in Danbury, we saw obviously this huge burst of students coming into our education system. I think we had 700 new students when we expected much fewer. And that problem is so specific to Danbury that the mayoral candidates had no choice, essentially, but to address it. Yeah. I think there are a lot of those hyper-local issues that came into this election cycle.
And as well as that being local, I think, that's schools specifically, but overcrowding and overpopulation, I think, is an issue that doesn't just affect us here in Connecticut or here in the United States, but I think it's a worldwide issue. And it's one that, countries and states are struggling to kind of combat and struggling to kind of deal with. And I think it's important that at the local level, as Danbury is clearly planning on doing, Mark Boughton's planning on doing, is addressing it, addressing it at the local level so that it can get to the state level and get to the countrywide level. And I think we here in the United States can set a good example for countries around the world. I guess we could transition now. Again, we're still waiting for the official results in Hartford as well as Middletown. We know Florsheim does have a significant advantage right now in Middletown. Still waiting on some results from Hartford. I want to get more of a general kind of opinion from you guys. You know, what has really stood out to you tonight from what we've learned and what we're still waiting to learn?
I think that I was a little bit surprised by the definitive turn for Boughton today. I don't think that I didn't expect him to win. I think we've seen that every election cycle, Boughton has this strong community relationship with our city, but I was expecting Sotero to give him even more of a run for his money, though I think this might be one of the closest races Boughton has fought since his original run against Sotero the first time he ran for mayor.
For both Danbury and Bridgeport, I wasn't surprised of the outcome due to the fact that these both mayors, they're both connected to their community. You know, they're out there.
Yeah.
They're interacting with the members of their community, which I think played a big role in the re-election.
Well, on that note, we have Mark Dowling, who is standing by in Danbury at Chris Sotero's camp with an update.
So a closely fought contention and a race ended up with 85-98 Mark Boughton and 73-72 Chris Sotero. We just finished hearing his speech, and he addressed a lot of the issues that he think was plaguing the campaign, namely just nothing in particular other than the preparation. They put in a lot of work heading into this. They really think they revived what they believe to be a diminishing Democratic Party in Danbury, and they're very positive moving forward that they're going to make the changes necessary to avoid this if he decides to run for re-election next term, which he also mentioned as a possibility. And we talked to one of his chairs trying to get an interview with him. Currently, he's very busy, so we were not able to do that today. But we got a statement from him in regards to just the general election, and he says that he fought a very hard-fought campaign. He really put in his all, and that Boughton just had the staying power this year, and there's not much you can do about that. So the energy in the room was a little bit down, but otherwise people are very positive moving forward that the changes that are necessary will be made, and that they will head forward with a new game plan to hopefully take the next election, or when he decides to go for re-election.
Mark, a couple questions for you. You mentioned that the mood was not necessarily in high spirits for obvious reasons at his camp, but could you give us a little bit of insight on the tone of that concession speech that he gave?
It was very solemn in nature. He got up. He seemed to be downcast a bit, not really wanting to address the audience. I think it hurt him pretty deeply, this situation as a whole, because when the numbers had originally came in, there was just 40 votes that Boughton had won by in the 7th District. And the 7th District mainly leaned Republican, as is, so they believed that they'd be able to take it back with the remaining districts if that number was any indication. So I think the shock of just the results setting in stuck with him for a bit, but as he went around the room and addressed some of his supporters and some of the chair members around him, I think his spirits started to raise a little bit more. He's looking forward to the future, as he stated in the speech. It's not going to serve him well to just focus on the negative at the moment, so...
And on that note, one more question for you here. You mentioned that he hasn't ruled out running again down the line, but did he hint at any immediate plans that he has for the future?
He suggested that he was going to be working for a re-election campaign, but there aren't any concrete plans at the moment set in place. So for right now, they're just going to continue working on building up the Democratic Party, which once again has seen better days. And just continue working on that, building infrastructure, and remaining positive.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that update, Mark. Truly appreciate it. All right, guys. So we heard what Mark had to say there. Put yourself, I guess, in Chris Sotero's shoes. You know, if you were a part of his camp or him himself, you know, what would be your next step at this time?
Just focus on my faults. Where did I go wrong, and how I could go for the future.
Yeah.
I think Chris Sotero did such a great showing for the city this year. Obviously, it wasn't a huge margin that he lost by. I think that he should be looking at ways that he can take up community leadership throughout the next year and use it as a transition. You don't have to be an elected official to make a difference in Danbury, and I would be interested to see what he does next through that.
And Mark mentioned rebuilding the Democratic Party in Danbury. Can you guys shed any light maybe on any specific steps that would need to be taken in that sense?
Just being more involved in your community, going out there, talking to the people of Danbury.
Yeah.
You know, getting involved in churches, after-school programs, just being more involved.
And that's something we've seen from both candidates in this campaign. They were very active. They were going door to door. And I think as community members, that's something that you want to see. You know, people running for public office, taking the time to come to your doorstep and kind of plead their case.
Definitely not only during election either. Just on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from what I've seen, Mark Boughton has such a strong presence, in the media world, specifically the social media world. He's very active on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, and things like that. And I think that could have been another factor. I'd like to get your guys' opinion if you think that maybe Sotaro's not being quite on the level of Boughton in social media and getting his name out there played a factor in him not winning tonight.
The social media group and the home group is two different groups. Like when you're on social media, you are attracting a whole different population, a whole different group. Yeah. So he's more outgoing. He's out there. So definitely played a role on this election.
Yeah, I think that Boughton has a exceptional social media presence. He has a relationship with people online. It's not always friendly, but it's always accessible. I think there are very few mayors in Connecticut that you can tweet at about whether your high school is going to be closed in the morning because you just got a snow day and you really, really, really don't want to have to take your test tomorrow, and you're actually going to get a response from him, maybe even within a couple minutes. Yeah. He's very online, and it'll be interesting to see if that's a new standard for mayors across Connecticut.
Absolutely. But on that note again, with Boughton, going into these next 2 years, we may have touched on it a bit before, but how crucial is it for him to come through on previous promises, specifically being, the main one he's kind of been running on here, which is connecting that Danbury train line to where you could take a direct shot from there to Grand Central through the connections through Brewster and Southeast train lines?
It's definitely important, but I'd like to see him work on the issues that Chris Sotero brought up. Yeah. So that's going to help him in the future.
Yeah, I think that the train plan obviously is a huge one for the city. It's not something that the mayor has direct control over if it's possible, but I would really love to see him sharing the results of that survey, moving forward the conversation in the public. But I do want to see him start announcing his plans for addressing the population at our schools, making sure those kids have classrooms that they can work in that aren't too overcrowded, and address also the downtown plans that Sotero pitched and see if there's a version of that he can bring to fruition for the city.
And it looked like in terms of the voting numbers, there's around the 15,000 to 16,000 voters who came out in Danbury. What are your guys' thoughts on that number of voters coming out and voting in the elections today?
We definitely need a higher turnout. The local races definitely affect us more than the national races. But yeah.
Audrey, do you have anything to say on that? The fact that it was about 15,000 to 17,000 in that range in terms of voters that came out in Danbury today?
I think that in Danbury we have a very dedicated voter bloc. I do think Danbury misses out on a lot of residential students and people who make their homes in Danbury through Western Connecticut State University. And I'll be interested to see how they're going to get more students to register to vote in Danbury as their hometown while they stay here in our residence halls. Because I think that's an underestimated, small but significant voting bloc.
Switching gears a bit here, looking at Hartford, we're still waiting for results from Hartford. Luke Bronin, he's the incumbent mayor. Many felt he has the advantage coming into tonight. We talked about this earlier, but for some viewers that might not have been watching at the time, he worked with former Governor Dannel Malloy. He has a strong history of political experience. Do you think that could play the advantage tonight for him?
Of course, definitely has an advantage of working with the Governor Dannel Malloy and also being the incumbent mayor, something that his opponent does not have.
Yeah, I hate to cut you off there, but we actually have breaking news out of New Haven. Justin Elliker standing by.
Hi guys, we are still here at Next Door Restaurant in downtown Danbury, and we have the new mayor here of New Haven, Justin Elliker. And first off, congratulations. If you can make a brief statement about what's happened tonight and how you're feeling, and also just as a student here in Connecticut,
what you think might be important in education development, what to take next steps, especially with Yale being such a big community here in New Haven. What might be something to focus on with in concerns into education?
Awesome. So I've been running for mayor for quite a long time now. It's been over 10 months since my team and I have been reaching out to New Haven residents all around the city. And I actually ran for mayor in 2013 as well and didn't win. So tonight is a very exciting night, as you can imagine, that all that energy that we've all put into this, and you never know until election night whether things are going to go well or not. And I think it sends a strong statement, the 70% support we got throughout the city, that people are excited for a new direction for New Haven. Education in New Haven is so important. And we have a Board of Education that has struggled recently with the superintendent that just left. And so with our public education system, from pre-K through grade 12, we really have to make sure that we're focusing on a number of things. First of all, making sure that we support the new superintendent to focus on the kids, support our guidance counselors. We have some budget problems, and we need to make sure that we don't balance those budget problems off the backs of teachers and guidance counselors and librarians. I think that we over-test a lot in our schools. Testing's important, but testing shouldn't be the only thing, and we need to give teachers some space to make sure that they can practice their art, what they actually know how to do in the classroom, and not be so focused on testing. And also, I think we need to make sure that New Haven kids that are going through school, if they want to, know that they are able to get into a college. And there's so many high-quality universities in this state. I actually taught a class at Southern Connecticut State University, that we need to make sure that New Haven kids can get into and are prepared for university.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Justin, and I appreciate your time and efforts, and it's been a really exciting night here. There was a lot of energy before. Now it's really died down, and I hope you can rest soon and really enjoy your victory. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that. And one of the big themes coming out of there, really the main theme that Eliker was preaching, was school reform, things like that. Specifically, there's a new superintendent. How important is it for him, specifically in this sense, to, welcome that new superintendent, who's running the school, who's running kind of the thing that he was campaigning on, which is the reform of school. How important is it that across Connecticut, mayors and superintendents and people in local offices work together, but in this case specifically, that he works with the superintendent?
I think that him working with the superintendent is exceptionally important. And I like what he said about making sure as a community that New Haven kids are prepped for college, prepped for higher ed. Because I think a lot of the times in these large, especially wealthy college cities, you can have a big disparity between the number of more socially and economically mobile college students who live in your city at Ivy League like Yale, and students who don't have those opportunities, who may be disadvantaged through their early schooling process. And I think it's exceptional that a mayor and a superintendent and other people at the city level are focusing in on making sure that their students are ready for college and are making that transition to higher ed.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things you mentioned, which resonates with people like us, students right now, is over-testing. He wants to cut down testing in the city, something that I'm sure we all like to hear, and I'm sure the students there like to hear. How important is it that teachers are able to focus more on maybe learning and concepts rather than trying to get students to memorize things in the testing format?
Definitely, because once again, the students and the children, they are the future of the city, and they should be prepped for the real world. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying the test's not going to help with that, but the teachers could definitely play a role in bringing these kids to the real world.
All right. Well, on that note, we have Zena Kajamarka, who is standing by in Middletown with Ben Florsheim. Zena?
Hi, Cameron. I'm here in Middletown, Connecticut with the new mayor of Middletown, Ben Florsheim. First off, I want to congratulate you in winning tonight's race.
Thank you very much.
How do you feel, with all the results and everything that you've been doing for the campaign lately?
Well, I mean, I feel incredibly grateful. I mean, I'm still sort of processing it. I've been having conversations nonstop ever since we learned the results. But I'm feeling really grateful that the people of this community that I chose to make my home have placed their confidence in me and in this incredible team of folks on the City Council, on the Board of Education, and on other elected boards, planning and zoning, our city treasurer. It's humbling and it's gratifying to be faced with this result, and I'm looking forward to sort of what comes next, to the work that lies ahead.
Absolutely. Nice to hear. First question: what do you consider to be the #1 issue affecting this?
You know, it's hard to boil it down to one issue, but if I were to have to, it would be our cost of living crisis. You know, the fact that Middletown is becoming, just like the rest of Connecticut, a more and more difficult place for people to start families, for people to retire, for people to find opportunity. And I think that that's just something that we need to confront head on. And I think that for a long time in this state, we've seen the solutions right in front of us. We have to stop acting like we can do everything differently from every other state in the country, from every other community in the country, and get a different result. And that expands to every other issue that is under the sun, right? It's about how we fund our education system. It's about how we build regional partnerships, work together as communities rather than against each other when it comes to economic development and things like that. I think that really is the big issue. The biggest issue is what our future is going to look like. What kind of a city do we want to have? Not just 4 years from now when this mayoral term is up, but 40 years from now when the next generation of people are coming into elected office. That's the big question that we have to answer for ourselves, and making sure that we are an affordable community for people to live in, to stay in, to retire in is at the top of the list of things that we need to do.
Absolutely. What steps will you take to ensure that you meet the goals now that you are elected as the new mayor of Middletown?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to make sure that we do is reaffirm and win over the confidence of the people who put us in this office in the first place. The first thing that I'm going to be doing is working with our city directors and all of our city employees to make sure that we are doing everything that we can on the city government side to deliver services as efficiently, as cost effectively, and at as high a level of quality as we can. And then the other thing is that what I've committed to throughout this campaign is that I'm going to be a mayor who listens, just as I've tried to be a candidate who listens. So we're going to be holding weekly events all across the city, making sure that there's an opportunity for the public to hear from us what's going on and for us to hear from them what they would like to see us doing. So we need to put that into practice starting on day one, and we're excited for the opportunity to really bring the community into city government, because I think that once we do that, there's just going to be no limit to what we can accomplish as a community together.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for speaking on these questions that we had for you. Well, once again, congratulations on tonight's win. I'm sure it's very exciting for you, and I'm excited to see what happens next. So
thank you very much for coming down, and thank you for all that you're doing. I'm excited to work with you in the future. So
back to you guys at WCSU News Election Connection.
Thank you so much, Zena. And we heard some very interesting things there from the next mayor of Middletown, Ben Florsheim. One of the things he mentioned there was cost of living, how big of an issue that is for him and for his city moving forward. If you guys were residents of Middletown, how important would it be that he raised that issue?
Okay, well, I'll give you a little correction there. I grew up in Middletown.
Oh, look at that.
Middletown is I call Danbury my hometown because I go to school here, I live here. I grew up in Middletown with my dad, and I think it's really exciting to see some young leadership there. The cost of living, like in the rest of Connecticut, is really high. Middletown's an interesting space because it's an urban area in the middle of what I think people would call a kind of rural center of the state. If you go just a little bit lower, you can get down to where my mom lives in Higganum, and you think you just jumped over the fence in the middle of an urban area right out into a cow pasture. Connecticut's really unique in that way, but whether you're in urban, suburban, or rural area in Connecticut, you're still paying those really high property taxes, and that's why I think it keeps coming up for for a lot of these mayoral candidates as they talk to us.
And Another thing he mentioned, which has been a theme of the night that we've even said about, me specifically, have said it many times tonight, is working together. He wants to work together with other cities, with others, and he will encourage Connecticut to work together with other states to improve things. That bipartisan approach, it's been a theme all night long. How important will it be in terms of seeing success from Florsheim's campaign?
To be very important, you know, because the more hands we have in the pot, the better for all of us.
Yeah.
I like that comparison. I think the more people who are working to improve their city, the more that city is going to improve. So, like we said before, it'll be interesting to see how some of these losers of the races take that on the chin and contribute to their cities in the following 2 years.
And that's really what I think, as citizens want to see is, you know, sure, they are defined as losers in the race, but, you know, they don't necessarily have to take that approach or have that mentality. And I think it's encouraging when, you know, the people who have won the races bring in opponents and things like that. We saw it specifically back in the 2008 presidential election, where Obama made Hillary Clinton a key part of his cabinet. And I think at the local level, it's important when, you know, you could say bipartisan approach, but do you mean it, you know? And I think bringing in, you know, as a Republican, bringing in Democrats, and as a Democrat, bringing in Republicans to your cabinets, I think it's very important, and I think it helps kind of gain the whole perspective of the city and the political climate. I don't know if you agree with that.
I agree completely, because at the end of the day, we're all fighting for the better cause of our city.
Yeah.
So the more we are aligned with each other, the better it is for the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think if anything voters can take from this is that it doesn't have to disrupt your city unity to have these debates, to have your winners and losers in the mayoral and local elections, that a lot of these people who ran for city councilor and didn't get in, that a lot of these people who ran for mayor and didn't get in, have opportunities to give back to their city moving forward.
And just to shift gears again here to the Hartford race, it's the one we're kind of waiting on results from right now. We asked this very early at the top of the broadcast, but I'll bring it up again for those who may not have been watching at that time. One of the more interesting storylines is J. Stan McCauley. He's running on the Republican ticket as a registered Democrat. For you guys, how unprecedented is that?
Well, it's not that it's unprecedented. He's run previously on the Republican committee line, and I think this just shows, like in Danbury, you have some cities in Connecticut where people want specific changes, and it has less to do with party lines and more to do with what their specific priorities are on the community level.
I just want to say now that Sean from Brookfield is watching us tonight.
All right. Thank you for that. And on this note, I just want to mention, well, I want to ask you guys. I asked it earlier, kind of what has stood out to you guys tonight. And I guess now I want to ask, what has kind of been the biggest surprise for you guys, if there has been one?
Honestly, I find it surprising that it's taking this long to count the votes. I'm curious if part of the delay in the vote counting for this more municipal-focused election has to do with some of the races that we've seen some question in the way the primary votes were counted and how they were processed. Yeah. And I'm really curious how Connecticut addresses irregularities in voting on city levels and on state levels in the coming months, especially as we gear up for the 2020 election.
Definitely. For me personally, I was very surprised at how quickly we learned of Danbury's result. Especially, you know, we talked about it in our broadcast last week, and it's kind of been around the news of how tight they felt this race was going to be, the Sotero versus Boughton race. For me personally, I was very surprised at how quickly Boughton was deemed the winner. Did that surprise you guys at all?
Not at all. Like I said before, he has a lot to back that up with.
Yeah.
And definitely I was surprised with the Bridgeport situation. I really thought Marilyn Monroe would have had a higher voter turnout.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Marilyn Moore was uniquely situated to make a splash in that town, and I think that it's disappointing that she was stuck on the write-in line. She should have been able to get on that ballot, and I'm excited for what she does next. I think she's going to be an interesting voice in that city.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for now, we have our own meteorologist, Zach Duhame, standing by with a weather update.
Thanks, guys. This is the last weather update of the evening. It's been a crazy evening, a lot of celebrations, some people not so happy with the results. That's how elections go. Luckily, regardless of how they went, the weather right now is cooperating. It's drying out after some morning showers, turning cooler right now. And for tomorrow, sunny and cool. So if you have any plans tomorrow, maybe some celebratory brunches with the candidates that have won. I know the mayor in Danbury, Mark Bowden, has one. So I know tomorrow will probably be a busy day around here in Danbury. Overall, nice weather for that, but not so nice on Thursday. Thursday evening, could see a couple of showers, especially after midnight, even a couple wet snowflakes likely to mix in. Not a big deal. We'll watch it closely, though, in case things change, but the Northwest Hills could see a quick accumulating snow, and everyone's going to see a big chill Friday night into Sunday. We're talking about highs around 40, lows in the teens. That's like mid-winter cold. It's only early November, so we have a lot to track in the upcoming forecast. The next map is going to show you current temperatures from today, with the high temperatures, really shouldn't say current, should say high temperatures, around 60 here in Danbury. 57 was the actual temperature, 60 in Hartford, Bridgeport, and New York City. So quite mild tomorrow, much quieter. Tomorrow's temperatures only around 50. Tomorrow's temperatures, the next map will show you that temperatures will be 49 in Southwest Connecticut, 44 in the Northwest Hills. So definitely on the cool side, but sunny, unlike today, which is the good news. The next map is going to show you what we're watching, though. That could be another system coming in our way. That's Thursday. And this storm is going to ride right overhead. So if you wanted a snowstorm, we thought could have happened earlier in the week. Now, not so likely. The storm needed to be down to our south with enough cold air. That would bring us snow. But see where the snow is in this kind of white shading back to the north. This green area in Connecticut's rain. A couple of flakes may mix in northwestern Connecticut as the cold air gets pulled into the storm later on. But overall, this is a mainly rainstorm. Cannot rule out a couple of snowflakes, but no accumulation expected except in the extreme northwest Connecticut. The next map will show you where that snow could fall. Again, the green's rain, so rain for everywhere around 11, 12 o'clock Thursday evening. This blue is very close to Northwest Hills, so I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of sticks a little bit down south, right about there, so they can see a quick coating, maybe an inch or two at most, but that's about it. We do have a change in the pattern, though, folks. The next map's going to show you what can happen over the next week. We have a big dip in the jet stream, so cold air is definite. We're talking about, again, highs in around 40, lows in the teens the next couple of days by late in the week. But there could be a storm that forms early next week, and that could bring us our first measurable snow. Now, don't forget, it's only November. We have a long way to go until the main winter season in December, January, February, but we may get an early taste of winter with some snow early next week. And for temperatures Saturday morning, look at these temperatures in the teens and 20s, 21 to northwestern Connecticut, 27 at the shore. Outlying areas probably 16, 18 degrees. That's frigid for early November. So just be prepared. Have your heavy coat, your heavy gloves. You will need it if you're going for a walk or run Saturday morning. So today's forecast for tonight, around 36 degrees, so no issues going home from any of the polling events. Just be careful. It's going to be chilly and a lot of people on the roads probably heading back, so be safe out there. Tomorrow's forecast, not bad at all. 51 degrees, right where we should be. Seasonably cool. Lots of sun, light winds, so beautiful day out there. In the extended forecast, again, we have an issue on Thursday evening to Friday. Some rain, could be a couple late snowflakes mixed in, like I mentioned earlier. Not a big deal. Could have a quick coating to an inch in the extreme northwest part of the state. Then it gets frigid. Friday, 39 degrees is going to feel like 25 to 30 with that gusty wind. Lows by Saturday morning, 17 degrees, up to 40. We should be near 50, remember, for Saturday, so still much colder, tickling with 50 on Sunday, which is still below average, but we have to watch that storm for early next week. This is my last election coverage doing this. I'm graduating in 5 weeks here at WestConn, and it's been a great time doing the forecast for everyone here on Election Connection. For the last time, guys, back to you at the desk.
Thank you so much for your updates throughout the night. We truly do appreciate it. And for now, one last time, we're sending it out to Gabe Jones, standing live in Bridgeport.
Cameron, the numbers don't lie, and neither does the energy of the party. After a long, treacherous journey, Joseph Ganim has once again taken the victory as mayor of Bridgeport. He's looking to enforce environmental growth, prison reformation, and improvement on infrastructure. The citizens are very pleased with the results, and hopefully he will bring about change within the next few years.
A question for you here, Gabe. Did he give you any sort of specifics on what he plans to do with infrastructure in the city?
He did seem to give very specifics about infrastructure, and he really does seem to know his stuff when it comes to that area. So it seems like he is very knowledgeable when it comes to that topic.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Gabe, for your reporting all night. You've done a fantastic job. All right, guys. So we heard what he had to say there. Kind of I guess summarizing things for us, Joe Ganim, it was a great win for him. Was any of this unexpected coming into tonight? Joe Ganim winning and winning by the margin he did?
Not at all. Like we said before, he has a connection with the people of Bridgeport. We keep saying it. He has a connection.
Yep.
He's with the people.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit surprising because of how contentious the primary was and how concerned people were with the election cycle, the irregularities in the primary voting process, and the handful of investigations and lawsuits that spun out of it. But despite that, clearly he has that deep-held connection.
Do you think those investigations and kind of the results of that primary will be in and around the news in the coming months, or does this all kind of die down now that he's won?
Well, I know that the Supreme Court, the Superior Court, dismissed the claim, and the Supreme Court did not answer it in time to run a new primary before tonight's vote. But there still is the matter of that SEEC investigation on the state level. And whether that turns to the Ganim camp had some involvement in these voting irregularities or something else was going on, hopefully we'll get to the bottom of it and Bridgeport will have their voting system sorted out for the next major election.
And, of course, Marilyn Moore would have wanted that primary to happen again. Obviously, Ganim would not have. Does tonight's result and the margin by which he won kind of put that to bed or kind of show that even if they had redone that Democratic primary, that things wouldn't have turned out any differently?
It's definitely going to have a doubt in the back of people's heads, but I think eventually it's going to die down.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that the margin can really be held against Marilyn Moore in this race, especially because the write-in line is so disqualifying, essentially, to any of these races. We weren't expecting John Rodriguez to put in a major amount of votes. I think he did an admirable job in Bridgeport, especially. But I don't think that we should judge Marilyn Moore on the percentage that she got in here as a Democratic candidate, as opposed to what she might have done had she had a named line on that ballot.
Yeah. Well, on that note, we send it back out to Danbury, where Ian Townley is standing by with an update from Boughton's camp.
Thank you, Cameron. We are standing outside of Anthony's Lake Club in Danbury, where Mayor Mark Boughton took his 10th consecutive term as mayor and won with a landslide vote of at least 1,200 votes. The room was absolutely ecstatic, and everybody seemed to just stand behind the mayor as he is set to take his 10th term to make the city of Danbury better than it's been. It's been a kind of a mixed bag for the Republicans, though. Even though they did secure the mayoral spot, they lost the zoning commission and the Board of Ed. So it was a very happy night for the mayor, but his counterparts are going to be from the other party. So that might be arduous down the road for the mayor.
Ian, is there a bit of maybe a sour taste in the mouth of Boughton, or possibly is he a little bit more reserved, knowing that his Republican constituents are no longer the majority in the zoning committee or the Board of Education?
Well, that's a great question, Cameron. It is a mixed bag because as the mayor of the Republican Party, you would want to have the person leading the zoning commission and the Board of Ed in your party, because that would make working with those people a lot easier, and it would make for easier legislation and governing. But he has to deal with what he has, and the mayor has the mayoral spot. So you have to take your victories where you can, and hopefully moving forward, the Republicans and the Democrats can get some bipartisan legislation done for the city of Danbury.
And a final question for you here, Ian. You mentioned over 1,200 votes that Boughton won by. Did this night play out how his camp envisioned it?
I would say so, yes. The Mark Boughton team ran on his body of work. In the last 18 years, crime rates have gone down, job unemployment has gone down. So they had a large body of work to work with. I'm not going to say that they felt overly confident about this win, but they felt that they have a good shot of beating Chris Sotero for the second time, and that is the outcome of the evening.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ian. We really appreciate the hard work you've put in here tonight.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so we heard him kind of wrap it up there, Mark Boughton. Definitely an interesting note that the Zoning Commission and Board of Education in Danbury has shifted to the left. Do you think that could play a factor in potentially getting things done in Danbury?
No, I mean, bipartisan. They got to work together now.
Right.
Yeah, I think that it shouldn't be viewed as a negative thing. I think earlier, Mark Boughton said this was a great exercise in democracy. And I hope that he considers that too moving forward. It's the integration of all of these new people from across the political spectrum should do nothing but benefit Danbury moving forward.
And it's definitely something to note here that, again, we've said this all night long, specifically me, but the bipartisan. Mark Boughton has said people over politics from the start. Now that he's going to be working alongside majority Democrats in the Zoning Commission and the Board of Education, it's a real chance for him to put that forward again, that he is people over politics and he will work across party lines in order to get things done.
Right.
Moving on, is there anything from you guys again here as we're closing out? You know, is there anything that specifically stands out to you from this night?
Well, why don't I give you guys a run through quickly of all of our winners so that we can summarize where we've ended this night. In Danbury, we're looking at Republican Mark Boughton coming into his record 10th term as the mayor of Danbury. Chris Totaro did a great job, came in under 300 votes away from the mayor, 1,300 votes away from the mayor. In Hartford, Luke Bronin has won the incumbent mayor there. In Middletown, Ben Florsheim, that 27-year-old candidate, the millennial candidate, beat out Sebastian Giuliano, the Republican who had previously served as Middletown's mayor. In New Haven, Toni Harp was beaten out by Justin Elicker, her Democratic challenger, by almost 6,000 votes. In Bridgeport, Joe Ganim has won against Marilyn Moore on the write-in and John Rodriguez as the Republican candidate. Those are our winners for tonight.
Well, hearing that, I did mention just before we went to that, is there anything that really stood out to you? But is there any race in particular where you were kind of looking at it going in and things maybe played out differently, or did everything kind of go according to the way you guys expected it tonight?
Everything went the right way that I thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
I think I've mentioned a couple times I was a little bit surprised about Marilyn Moore's underperforming campaign, but I think I underestimated the negative effect of that write-in. I think if she maybe had the chance to get on the ballots directly, she might have had a better turnout in the vote, especially since she had done so sweepstakes on the primary initial votes. And I was a little shocked at how soundly Justin Elicker beat incumbent Mayor Toni Harp in New Haven. Clearly people are looking for change there, and they held up the result from their primary.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Toni Harp was on that ticket as a write-in.
On the Working Families Party
On the Working Families Party ticket, not as a write-in, my apologies. Do you feel that was an issue that she was on, or did that play to her downfall in a sense?
Well, I think it symbolized the fact that she had lost the Democratic nomination. She was a Democratic mayor. She lost the nomination through the primary, and people may have thought, well, we're Democrats. We're voting across the Democratic line. Well, we voted for you in the past. We're going to vote for the Democratic candidate this time around.
And Toni Harp, she campaigned mainly on lowering crime, improving education. We mentioned this before. She wanted to make New Haven a world-class city. I guess she hadn't completed that while she was in office. That's just what she was looking to do. But her, of course, the body of work wasn't enough. Would you agree that her body of work wasn't enough to get her over the line this time?
I mean, it's proven Justin Elicker is the new mayor of New Haven, so he brought something that she lacked, and we will see in the coming years how it plays out.
Yeah, I don't want to dismiss Toni Harp's accomplishments in New Haven. She was the first woman mayor of New Haven, period. And she pushed for a new and diverse perspective within the mayorship in New Haven. I'm hoping that we'll continue to see that in Elicker's leadership. He has also pushed for diverse community-based decision-making. And I'd like to see that original message that Toni Harp ran on carried out through Elicker's campaign. His leadership, actually, his mayorship.
Right, absolutely. And we mentioned many times, you know, Ben Florsheim, the millennial candidate, just 27 years of age. You know, that was obviously a big storyline from tonight. Tonight was filled with storylines. And, you know, as we're closing out the night, I think we would say that things really went kind of how we expected them. Now, we just want to take a second to thank Sean from Brookfield, Connecticut, who's been watching us from tonight's Election Connection live stream. We just want to give him a special shout-out and thank him for tuning in. Any final thoughts you guys have, you know, as we're closing out the night here?
I think these races were very interesting. I think that they set an interesting tone for Connecticut as we end the last election cycle before the 2020 election, which I think a lot of people would agree is the biggest election we're leading up to.
Absolutely. Well, you've been watching Election Connection, Western Connecticut State University's live news and election coverage. I'm Cameron O'Brien.
And I'm Julian DeRess.
And I'm Audrey Nielsen.
Thank you so much for watching Western Connecticut State University's Election Connection live news and election coverage. Have a great night.